Chapter 541, Vast Cold's Descendant 4. Thud, 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 thud. I step along the flow of the universe, gradually approaching blood-een. Do-do-do-do-do. Gradually, the power of heaven, earth, heart, and wheel overflows, and my body expands into that of a white giant god. Now, it feels like I could cradle a fixed star in one arm. At the same time, blood-een also begins to expand his form. Kurung, Kururung. The dark red mist emanating from his entire body spreads and devours the cosmic space. Simultaneously, I can see something immensely colossal. It is a head. A head, formed from dark red mist, reveals itself in the universe, with its eyes burning fiercely. That head, much like the head realm. No, it seems even more eroded by time than the head realm. There's not a single piece of flesh or muscle left. Only the form of a skull remains. Within that head, I can sense the movements of thousands, hundreds of millions, trillions, quadrillions of living beings. True immortal blood-een. The blood-een realm itself begins to exert its true power. Enormous. Even for me, now capable of wrapping a star with one arm, blood-een's main body is enormous. With his mouth, large enough to swallow my entire body in one bite, he speaks. In the name of blood-een, I prophesize. Kugagugagu. At the same time, a star is born inside blood-een's mouth. You shall enter this immortal's mouth and be crushed to death. Though an enemy, I can't help but feel awe at such a prophecy of fate. To overcome the prophecy, I must destroy the prophetic star. But to destroy the prophecy, I must crawl into blood-een's mouth. And blood-een's prophecy declares that I will enter his mouth and be chewed to death. This is a true immortal who was once said to have coveted the seat of a supreme deity. It is a masterful use of prophecy, akin to a seasoned veteran who has seen countless battles. Along with it, countless whispers begin to echo from within blood-een's body. Prophecy, prophecy, prophecy prophesies. Today, the unbreakable ill fate between you and this immortal will be resolved. You shall wait for an opportunity by this immortal's side. You shall become a fearless warrior who knows no retreat. If you flee from this immortal today, you will become nothing but a cowardly, pathetic weakling who knows only defeat, living the rest of your life trapped in a cave until you finally take your own life. It with circumflexen. Tingle tinge. This is a prophecy. However, a prophecy that is not limited to this moment of battle, but encompasses even a distant future fills blood-een's mouth. At the same time, I can feel, too, futures being revealed before me. Will I fight blood-een today and become a fearless warrior, or will I retreat and live the rest of my life as a bug who knows nothing but failure, drowning in defeat until I take my own life? Two choices are forced upon me. With this, escape from this confrontation with blood-een is no longer an option. Prophecy, after all, is the act of fixing the future by my will. It is undoubtedly an act of defying the heavens. Therefore, prophecy demands a price to be paid. His will swiftly whispers wisdom into me. However, prophecies that offer choices like this require almost no price. The choice given to the opponent becomes the very price they must bear. Seeing, it is forced. Fate selects a choice by my hand, and the future where I face blood-een fearlessly becomes locked in place, entirely erasing the option to retreat. Then let us begin in earnest. I stretch my hand towards blood-een. Kugagu. Impermanence sword. Heavenly shatter impermanence. White power surges and flares from my entire body, and my form swells dramatically for an instant. I become destruction itself. Revealing the fierce power of destruction, I swing my fist down in a state larger than even blood-een's main body. The stars of the five elements shall obey this immortal's command. Flash. At the same moment, 5 stars are created above blood-een's head, imbued with the light of the 5 elements. Greenish-blue, reddish-yellow, yellow, silvery-white, blackish-blue. The 5 beams of light seem to envelop blood-een's head, and then each star projects 5 scenes, scattering in 5 directions. However, strangely enough, the stars of the 5 elements created this time by blood-een do not contain scenes related to my or his victory or defeat. What is contained in those stars is submission, ching. The properties of the 5 elements are commanded to submit to blood-een's will. Simultaneously, the star veins emanating from each star connect. It seems as though the energy of the 5 elements is dyeing the surroundings in an instant. The 5 elements in the vicinity are gripped firmly in blood-een's grasp. Quang. The single strike of my impermanence sword is deflected by the heaven and earth spiritual energy canopy, formed from the 5 elements by blood-een's immortal art. It can't be cut. Do you believe you can sever the principles of the universe with merely the heart? Such arrogance. The stars of the 5 affairs, Wushu, shall follow this immortal's principle. The 5 elements in the surroundings under blood-een's control move, creating a single star once again. Within that one star, 5 scenes are contained. Simultaneously, the 5 affairs star resonates with the 5 element stars, and yin-yang begins to ripple across the stars of 5 elements. The 5 affairs are seeing, hearing, and thinking, ultimately perceiving the taiji. Recognizing the cycle of twilight, light, and shadow is the path to attaining the 5 affairs. Though somewhat esoteric, the meaning feels strangely clear to me. Perceiving taiji is the 5 affairs, and, through the 5 affairs, perceive the taiji of the 5 elements to establish the 10 pillars. The 10 heavenly stems have been completed. Taiji ripples around the 5 element stars, and then the 5 affairs star explodes. At the same time, the 5 affairs star transforms into a fixed star, forming a stellar system at the center of the 5 element stars. The stars of 5 elements illuminated by the fixed star now possess day and night, beginning the cycle of yin and yang. Seeing this, I realize, this is dangerous. But at the same time, it is awe-inspiring. The grand principles of the universe are being drawn by Blood Yin's hand. At this moment, it almost seems insignificant whether Blood Yin is a devil immortal or not. I just want to stupidly stare at that stellar system. The 8 paths shall bow and prostrate before this immortal's principle. 8 principles are engraved around the stellar system. At the same time, I suddenly realize something. The 8 paths I possess. In other words, the authority of the sacred vessel is being extracted into that stellar system. Only then do I regain my senses and swing the impermanence sword at Blood Yin once more. Impermanence sword. Entering heaven. Heavenly shatter impermanence. The powers of entering heaven and heavenly shatter impermanence simultaneously hammer down upon Blood Yin. This time, the heaven and earth spiritual energy canopy of the 5 elements that he has unfolded cannot withstand my strike and collapses. At the same time, the aftermath of my strike slices the stars of the 5 elements and the entire stellar system into thousands of pieces, scattering them into the void. But, what's this? Why? Even though I've cut down the star of prophecy, even now, the 5 elements are supporting Blood Yin. The prophecy has already been fulfilled, and this current state is its result. What use is there in trying to collapse the star of a prophecy that has already been fulfilled? The 5 elements of heaven and earth obey Blood Yin's command, and at the same time, my sacred vessel authority is being stripped away by the 5 elements. Along with that, Blood Yin's authority begins to forcibly impose the power of the 8 paths over the entire astral realm, as if declaring the entire astral realm is his sacred master domain. Blood Yin begins to utter the next prophecy. The 5 epochs shall submit to this immortal's principle. Year, month, date, hour, calendar. That's right. The light of the sun and moon heavenly domain begins to tremble under Blood Yin's command. That is not the end. Starting from royal perfection, correct rule, Zhengkura, strong rule, Gengkura, and mild rule, Roka. Hear me. You shall become dancers who dance under this immortal's hand, bringing delight to the eyes and ears. He mocks. Blood Yin mocks the light across the entire region, wielding it according to his will. Ji-yeek. Together with that, I feel my head spinning. This is. Blood Yin raised the light to the plane of fate, and is infusing that light into me. Gwa-wah. I scream. Something is being etched into my mind by Blood Yin. Examination of doubts and various omens shall dance by the command of this immortal and proclaim to the stars of the nations. Perceive the unfolding of this immortal's authority throughout the entire world and rightfully uphold it. Recognize that this immortal's authority spreads across all realms and serve accordingly. Kugagugum. The sun and moon heavenly domain begins to tremble. Simultaneously, I can feel the attraction force emanating from Blood Yin grabbing hold of all the stars in the sun and moon heavenly domain. Shiver. I stare at Blood Yin with a stunned expression. I sent this, no different from declaring the entire sun and moon heavenly domain as his middle realm as a sacred master. Chua. The entire region becomes tainted with dark red blood devilish energy. Everywhere my gaze and senses reach is filled with thick blood devilish energy, and I can feel it all falling under Blood Yin's control. I feel an overwhelming sense of powerlessness at the insurmountable gap between myself and Blood Yin, and I nearly feel like collapsing on the spot. The 6 extremes shall listen, and the 5 blessings shall also heed. Now that the constellations are complete, this immortal prophesizes once more. Blood Yin's decree carves itself into reality and begins forming a star once more. Following the authority of the examination of doubts and various omens, Blood Yin's blood devilish energy spreads across the sun and moon heavenly domain in the forms of rain, clearing, cloudiness, one of connection, crossing, inner diagram, outer diagram, and rain, sunlight, heat, cold, wind, time. Following this, The shadows of the 5 blessings and 6 extremes begin to stir across the entire sun and moon heavenly domain, as if handing over the sovereignty of the domain itself to Blood-een. This is Blood-een showing his true power. I cannot win. He has become the world itself. How can a being born within the world possibly defeat the world? I cannot do it. As expected, now this is familiar. I smirk while my mind remains stuck in the pit of despair. At some point, the misfortune of the 6 extremes marked by Blood-een has clung to my shadow. Unbeknownst to me, this misfortune has been gnawing away at my mind. The 6 extremes are the shadows of the 5 blessings. And Blood-een is the leftover of Yu Hao Te, one of the 5 blessings immortals who once governed the 5 blessings. Therefore, no one in Mount Sumeru can naturally wield the 5 blessings and 6 extremes better than Blood-een. I will not give up. You do deduct. Gradually, swiftly, I begin to rotate the wheel. I cannot fully understand your immortal arts and your fate. Therefore, I cannot rewrite Blood-een's fate or twist his prophecy with the wheel. The reason I could twist the end of the sun and moon heavenly domain was because I understood the uniqueness of the end and succeeded in controlling it to some extent through the phenomena extinguishing mantra. But as for the sun and moon heavenly domain that Blood-een now controls, I cannot even fathom seizing control. But does that mean everything is over? Even so, there's still something that can be changed. The wheel is an immortal art that rewrites what I understand. But the current sun and moon heavenly domain has become something I cannot comprehend because of Blood-een. In that case, there is only one thing I can change right now. Myself. Being. I rewrite. O heart of mine, that leans towards despair. Chase after hope. Ying. Power begins to overflow throughout my entire body. I know myself well. I know the connections I have made. I know the world I have lived in to some extent. And the combination of all of those things and what now stands here is the current me. Because I know this, because I understand this. Even if I cannot change everything in this world, I can at least change myself. Keying. The power sourced from heaven, earth, heart, and will begins to amplify explosively. A perfect amplification, without any waste, bursts forth from my body. Let's trust in what I have accumulated. Even if this entire world presses down on me, let's resist and move forward. Because that is the will I have upheld until now. I become a sword, not just a blade created to kill and cut people and animals. A weapon forged to confront. I become the will forged to oppose the heavens, fate, and the world pressing down on me. This is a blade worthy of being called the true impermanent sword. Oh, my body grows larger, to the point where I could hold a fixed star in one hand. Now larger than Blood-een, I swing my hand. Following the principle of martial arts, my hand blade strikes and collapses a corner of the sun and moon heavenly domain. If Blood-een has conquered the sun and moon heavenly domain, I will oppose him with the momentum to shatter the entire world. If Blood-een has prophesied the fate of death upon me, I will crush Blood-een along with that prophecy. I am the strongest, because I have something I have accumulated up until now. Quatching. At last, my strike creates a crack in the void. As I thought, it isn't that the entirety of the sun and moon heavenly domain is under his control. He merely seized control of a portion of the astral realm, trapped me there, and is confronting me from within. Quang. However, the domain created by Blood-een collapses entirely under the force of my strikes, reopening a passage to the outer universe. Help me. With a dazzling wheel at my back, I call upon my comrades to decisively end Blood-een. With that, the connections gather in one place. Pat it. The radiant divine demon Kim Young-hoon transforms into a golden-winged Peng and soars into this place. Quorum. The 6 extremes ghost King John Myung-hoon, who has just succeeded in advancing to the sacred vessel stage, descends wrapped in red lightning across his 3 heads and 6 arms. Kaiwea. Appearing leading countless ghosts is Kong Min-hee, who has reached the grand perfection sacred vessel stage. As soon as she arrives, she begins attempting to seize Blood-een's domain. Oh Hyun-suk supports the comrades from the rear, supplying them with power through the force of primordial chaos. A little behind Oh Hyun-suk, Kim Yun is pulling out the wonderfully mysterious fortress and artificial stars from cedarwood painting. Do-do-do-do-do. As the powers of Oh Hyun-suk and Kim Yun combine, an overwhelming amplification effect is starting to be seen. The immense waves of power surging from Kim Yun are palpable even to me. From now on, Hwaruruk. Positioning my Ender's comrades beside and behind me, I look down upon Blood-een. I will hunt you, Blood-een. With that as the declaration, we simultaneously unleash our assault on Blood-een. Golden Blade Light cleaves Blood-een's entire domain. John Myung-hoon's red lightning spreads out like a net, trapping Blood-een's blood devilish energy. Kong Min-hee's Ghost Kings clash with the heavenly fiends pouring from Blood-een's domain, protecting the minds of our comrades. The overwhelming authority formed by the combined powers of Oh Hyunsuk and Kim Yun is continuously supplying us with strength. And I, standing at the forefront, draw the impermanence sword. All this time, countless immortal arts and prophecies pour from Blood Yin's mouth. As I slash through the stars and prophecies, I begin my descent towards Blood Yin. Grasping complete void, Shikong, in my hand, I reach out towards Blood Yin. I have suffered. I have endured far too much oppression and pain. I lost my friends, lost my comrades, and had to watch those I cherished be devoured before my eyes. I gradually transform into a meteor. A long trail of light forms behind me like the tail of a shooting star, and within that trail, the torch of myriad forms and connections shines brightly, displaying countless scenes from the past. To others, it's merely a hazy light. But to me, it holds unparalleled meaning. Countless past connections are now pushing me forward. But, not anymore. The constant cycle of suffering has repeated countless times. But now, I have become the strongest. No longer will I only be oppressed as before. Therefore, I gaze at Blood Yin. The prophecy declares that I will enter Blood Yin's mouth and be chewed to death. But I will not be devoured. With the strength I have accumulated, with the connections I have forged, I will pierce through the prophecy. You too, face me head on. My eyes meet Blood Yin's eyes. My will urges Blood Yin to open his eyes and reclaim the honorable, virtuous, and noble past he once had. To face his past misdeeds and vice head on, to reflect, and to return to his former seat of authority. Chwerareric. Heavenly fiends of the Blood Yin realm pour forth, obstructing my view. Kong Minhe's ghost kings charge ahead, clearing away the heavenly fiends. As Blood Yin's prophecy is uttered, a constellation is born deep within his domain. My path is blocked. But John Myung-hoon and Kim Young-hoon break through with lightning and slice through with golden radiance. At the same time, Oh Hyunsuk's primordial chaos connects all of us, allowing us to give and receive energy. Kim Young-hoon, through Oh Hyunsuk's authority, merges his consciousness with mine and glimpses the enlightenment of severing heaven. John Myung-hoon stabilizes his sacred vessel cultivation by borrowing a portion of my immense power. Kong Min he catches a glimpse of my enlightenment at the entering nirvana stage and begins to reach towards it. And then, Kim Yun's power reaches me. Kururum. Kim Yun's power accelerates the falling meteor that is my descent. It reinforces my hegemonic force, Bali, drawing forth even more limitless power. Can I do this? Kim Young-hoon, John Myung-hoon, and Kong Min he open the path. Oh Hyunsuk binds us all together, and Kim Yun delivers her power. On top of that, the power of heaven, earth, heart, and wheel floods my body. There's no way I can't. I will pierce through. My fate. He can't. Kim Yun clenches her lips and sweats in her palms. Through the wonderfully mysterious fortress and her full blossom, she amplifies Oh Hyunsuk's power and channels it, and the other amplified power to Seo Eunhyun. Yet, for some reason, she feels an ominous foreboding. The Liberation Law talent is warning her. Just this level of power isn't enough to overturn Blood Yin's design. It warns her that Seo Eunhyun will be swallowed whole by Blood Yin. No, no. Kim Yun bites her lips fiercely. Why am I so powerless? It's just when Kim Yun is despairing over her weakness. Through Oh Hyunsuk's authority of primordial chaos, Seo Eunhyun's enlightenment faintly reaches her. It is an enlightenment of faith. Believe in yourself. Believe in what you have accumulated. At first glance, it seems like nothing more than a cliché lesson about perseverance. But Kim Yun feels as though Seo Eunhyun himself is speaking those words directly to her. No, it's not just a feeling. Beyond the enlightenment, Seo Eunhyun's warm will is emitted towards her. For some reason, she sees an illusion of Seo Eunhyun, running ahead and turning slightly to look back at her with a gentle smile, flashing before her eyes. Seo Eunhyun is intentionally transmitting the enlightenment Kim Yun needs right now. That's right. I will believe in myself. Why Yang? Around Kim Yun, quince blossoms bloom profusely. At the same time, the spiritual energy of the bright, cold realm rises thickly around her. Amidst the fully bloomed quince flowers, the scent of peach blossoms gradually mixes in. Let's borrow the power of the bright, cold realm as well. More. Just a little more. She recalls the path she has walked. Until now, she has not advanced her cultivation realm from the heavenly being stage. The reason she has not done so is only one. That is, the being beyond the peach blossom tree. The lingering will of vast cold told her not to walk that path. The lingering will of bright cold told her this. Do not walk the path of immortal cultivation, and instead walk only the path that transforms the world purely through the heart. For that reason, after obtaining the vast cold heavenly circle, she intentionally refrained from advancing her cultivation realm. Instead, she focused entirely on moving the world with the power of her heart. Pat it. Kim Yun's consciousness domain burns brightly. Now having grown to an unimaginable extent, Kim Yun's consciousness domain, capable of covering the entire bright cold realm, explodes with a light powerful enough to illuminate an entire galaxy. For a brief moment, Kim Yun holds power so immense to the point that she mistakes herself for having become a true immortal. SUC says. Within her consciousness domain, filled with the scent of quince flowers, her full blossom blooms completely. The full blossom is converting Kim Yun's consciousness into power. However, Kim Yun cannot move from her spot. I have to pass this on. She must deliver her power to Seo Eunhyun. Otherwise, everything she has done will be utterly meaningless. However, the sheer magnitude of her power is so overwhelming that she realizes she is pinned down by it, unable to move. I have to move, even if it's not with my power, even if I have to borrow another's. Ying. Through her consciousness, Kim Yun draws a formation within the wonderfully mysterious fortress. The Realm Annihilation Ground Shrinking Formation is drawn by her, and she instantly gains a way to reach Seo Eunhyun. I can use the power drawn from the Bright Cold Realm to activate the Ground Shrinking Formation. With the torrents of power from the Bright Cold Realm, she plans to be launched towards Seo Eunhyun along with the formation. But there is a problem. If I activate it with the Bright Cold Realm's power, the formation will break. That cannot happen. If the formation collapses while she is in transit, Kim Yun will become a lost soul in the universe. But I can't waste any more time. Seo Eunhyun will eventually be devoured by blood while charging forward. I need another way. Eunhyun Appa, he believes in me. I need a way quickly. Then, she suddenly feels someone pushing her back. Chiyuria. It is Hong Fan, with steam rising from his entire body. As if he ascended again from the head realm, he smiles at her with his body in tatters. Sometimes, please trust in others. Please go on. I will control the power surging from the bright cold realm. At his words, Kim Yun nods with tears welling in her eyes and steps onto the ground shrinking formation. In the next moment, Kim Yun flies towards Seo Eunhyun, carrying the power she has created through full blossom. Quachajijik. Only Hong Fan remains in place, using his own body to receive and control the power originating from the bright cold realm to activate the Realm Annihilation Ground Shrinking Formation. Leaping through countless space-time, Kim Yun finally reaches Seo Eunhyun. Seo Eunhyun is titanic. He is a white colossal giant god. To such a being, the small Kim Yun seems unlikely to be of any help. But, with her small hands, Kim Yun pushes against the gigantic Seo Eunhyun's back. At the same time, the immense power of full blossom generated within her body, and the power of the entire bright cold realm, transmitted through Hong Fan and Kim Yun as mediums, adds onto Seo Eunhyun. Koala. Hong Fan's entire body bursts apart. Yet, even despite this, Hong Fan endures, firmly holding on as he controls the power. And at the moment when Hong Fan's control reaches its peak, flash. The torrent of power surging from the bright cold realm is channeled through Hong Fan into the Realm Annihilation Ground Shrinking Formation. Kim Yun's body, receiving that power, explodes radiant light outwards. The overwhelming magnitude of Vast Cold's rank is so immense that the bird pattern imprinted on Kim Yun's face briefly detaches from the power, spanning tens of thousands of years. Kim Yun shouts towards Seo Eunhyun, who is charging ahead at the front. Stop. Always charging ahead every day. And look back sometimes, Seo Eunhyun, because I'm waiting here. Kim Yun's cry pierces through the bird pattern that momentarily detached from her and reaches Seo Eunhyun. Once again, she yells out the confession that went unnoticed by Seo Eunhyun tens of thousands of years ago on Earth, pushing Seo Eunhyun with her small hand. I like you, Seo Eunhyun. With those words, an immense brilliance of light pink bursts forth from her body. The scent of peach blossoms fades, leaving only the fragrance of quince blossoms filling the heaven and earth. Seo Eunhyun turns back to look at that Kim Yun and smiles. Kim Yun meets Seo Eunhyun's eyes. Though no words come in reply, Kim Yun understands. Seo Eunhyun has finally accepted her. Flash. With the help of his comrades and Kim Yun's power, Seo Eunhyun charges into Blood Yin's mouth. Becoming a spear of light, he smashes the star within Blood Yin's mouth and pierces through Blood Yin's vital point, emerging at the back of the head. Blood Yin's prophecy shatters. Seo Eunhyun smiles victoriously, and his companions look at him with faces full of trust. Kim Yun, too, smiles brightly as she speaks the words she had held in her heart for tens of thousands of years. Life is love. The tattoo of the Liberation Law talent, briefly pushed out of Kim Yun's body by the power of Vast Cold, returns to her, sealing her words spirit once more. Hong Fan collapses unconscious within the wonderfully mysterious fortress, rolling off somewhere. But his face is filled with satisfaction. Perhaps he feels proud to have properly supported his master. And, at the edge of the sun and moon heavenly domain, from where the lightning sacred sea lies, a brilliantly resplendent light of sunset bursts forth. Through the gap held back by Yang Sujin's ring finger, an immense beam of light explodes as someone descends. They are the sun, one of the rulers of the Great Radiance Hall. Radiance 8 Immortals. Third seat. Great Sun Heavenly Lord. They have descended personally to destroy the monster that annihilated the projections of the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords, allies of the Radiance Hall, and the subordinates of the Heavenly Venerable of Time. Are you satisfied? Bloodine regains his senses and gazes at the faint purple afterimage flickering before his eyes. And then, Bloodine smiles. If it's to this extent, it's enough. The purple figure smiles along with Bloodine. Let us return now, even if not as a lord, even if only as a mere defendant. At Bloodine's words, the purple figure, perhaps just to make sure, asks him a question. Are there no lingering regrets? Truly, none. Bloodine closes his eyes. I have aided the workings of the Imperial Venerable with my own hands. With that, I have no regrets. Within the dark red aura, Bloodine smiles brightly. In an instant, the dark red light begins to blaze. It is no longer a dark red light. It is dusk, Wang. The light of dusk, like the evening twilight, bursts forth centered around Bloodine and begins to push against the radiance of the sun, Taiyang, rising from afar. Listen, as I have just shown, the mantra of the 5 elements is to conclude with the 5 blessings. And what then returns as 5 elements and repeats is their power. Etch into your mind the method to resist it. While passing his final teaching to Xiao Unhyun, the victor, Bloodine closes his eyes. At that moment, an immense explosion of light bursts forth from Bloodine. The explosion tears a hole through the sun and moon heavenly domain itself, and through that hole, everyone except Xiao Unhyun is flung far away into a distant heavenly domain. Xiao Unhyun, struck directly by Bloodyin's explosive light, is immediately forced into the true immortal advancement ritual. Pushing Xiao Unhyun towards death, Bloodine peacefully closes his eyes. O Imperial Venerable, please, find what they have been seeking. To save Xiao Unhyun, believed to be the workings of the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld, from the grasp of the Radiance 8 Immortals. Bloodine thus self-destructs. Under a melia tree, a certain figure watches him with a smile and closes their eyes. The former chief judge of the Netherworld, Nether Devil True Lord Yu Haote, on that day, falls into complete slumber. Chapter 542, True Immortal Advancement. Heaven and earth distort. For a moment, it feels difficult to understand what is what. But in an instant, I am able to understand what the situation is. Bloodine self-destructed? I remember that in the final moment, Bloodine exploded with a dusk-like light, releasing power, surpassing imagination. And in those final moments, I remember my comrades being flung somewhere beyond the sun and moon heavenly domain by Bloodyine's self-destruction. Simultaneously, I realize what situation I am in right now. I see. Everything has completely shattered. My entire physical body, my authority, heaven, earth, heart, wheel, even the power added by Kim Yun, everything. I have been reduced to cosmic dust, only a single strand of consciousness remaining, and drifting aimlessly through the expanse of space. Even in this state, I can feel death approaching closer with every passing moment. Suddenly, futility washes over me. In this 999th cycle, I have struggled so desperately with all my power to survive. Yet, in the end, I couldn't avoid Bloodyine's self-destruction and now face such a futile death. Still, I fought with all my might. Truly, it was a life where I gave everything, leaving nothing behind. It's unbearably regretful, but still, I can accept this death. It's then. Woo-woo. Suddenly, I notice my consciousness being sucked in somewhere. This is. Startled, I look towards the place pulling me in. There, a sun, Kaiyang, tinged a reddish yellow with a subtle crimson hue, glows with the light of dawn. The sun is beautiful. Its light alone feels as though it illuminates and warms the entire universe. However, the moment I see that sun, I feel chills spreading deep inside my very soul. Kugugugugugu, the center of the sun. At its core, something is glowing. It is a being adorned in ancient robes, wearing a mianguan on their head, with a reddish-yellow mask covering their face. The moment I perceive this being, I realize through the wisdom radiating from them who they are. Radiance 8 Immortals. Third seat. Great Sun Heavenly Lord. What is this? One of the rulers of the Radiance Hall is pulling in my soul. The being's hands are raised to their chest, almost touching each other, and gathering light between them. Within that light, a familiar energy is felt. It's my physical body. That being is reconstructing the body that Bloodine reduced to cosmic dust, using it as a foundation to summon my soul back. Are they trying to revive me? Su Sheng. However, the closer I am pulled towards that being through attraction force, the more I realize that's not the case. This is. The moment I realize what that being is doing, I cannot help but be horrified. This madness. Is such a thing even possible? No matter how high ranking of a true immortal they are. How can they? Do. The heart begins to rapidly convert into attraction force. From the sacred vessel stage, one can somewhat control the heart's change into attraction force that begins in the star-shattering stage, and through the immortal arts of 8 paths, make the attraction force-changed heart operate like a true heart. From the entering nirvana stage, it even becomes possible to return the attraction force-changed heart back to its original state. However, even though I have reached the entering nirvana stage, I cannot avoid the phenomena of my heart being changed into attraction force by the great heavenly Lord. Why does the heart become attraction force starting from the star-shattering stage? Why does one formally step into the stages of immortal arts from that point? It's perhaps because the star-shattering stage marks the beginning of the preparatory phase for the true immortal advancement ritual. The true immortal advancement ritual proceeds as follows. Just like when I previously stood before Jinlu Gok and released all the death energy of the death path, 3 great ultimates, the heart gradually changes into an attraction force, and that attraction force gradually reaches its peak. At its peak, the heart's attraction force begins to contract, eventually compressing into a single point and annihilating everything about the cultivator. Once compressed, the true person's physical body and authority are released from their compression, entering the interdimensional void, where they gradually decompose and turn into a vestige, Phi. Then, the soul of the true person, having undergone complete annihilation, moves towards the domain of death, uniting life and death within the soul itself before unfolding the immortal art cultivated from the star-shattering stage to the entering nirvana stage. At the core of the immortal art, a being that has fully embraced and contained life and death is born. In the 3,000 great thousand worlds, such a being is called a true immortal, Zhenshan. In short, from the star-shattering stage, the heart begins changing into attraction force. In the sacred vessel stage, one learns to control this attraction force through immortal arts. In the entering nirvana stage, the attraction force reaches its peak. Finally, the true immortal advancement involves compressing this peak attraction force, annihilating oneself before shedding, Tochao, from one's life, and uniting life and death to become an entirely new existence. This is the enlightenment I once realized in front of the Jinlu Gok, and at the same time, the true immortal advancement ritual I cross-verified with Yo Y. And now, the great Sun Heavenly Lord is forcibly pulling my soul, scooping up the power of the domain of death, forcefully merging it with me, and attempting to forcibly advance me. Ah no. I recall the warnings of countless high beings, including Yang Sujin. Be wary of the light. I can't get caught by the great Sun Heavenly Lord. I can feel it. That being is not pulling me in to advance me because they favor me. I can feel earnest malice. And I realize that malice is connected to the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords I annihilated. The Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords. Did they have some contract with the Radiance Hall? Because I destroyed their projections, is this being trying to do something to me? I cannot be certain. But one thing is clear. I must never allow myself to advance at the hands of the great Sun Heavenly Lord. If I advance through the great Sun Heavenly Lord, I won't need to die. I can feel that being drawing up the power of death and performing the advancement ritual in my stead. However, I recall Bloodyan's words, that every prophecy comes with a price. And I recall the wisdom etched into me by him. Every prophecy comes with a price. And the forces of light, known to sit at the pinnacle of prophecies, are always infamous for forcing their prices onto others. If I advance to true immortality through that being, I foresee a future where I am bound by a leash to the Radiance Hall for eternity, paying the price for advancement. I would be even less than an immortal treasure, treated like livestock. I must escape. Woo-woo. With desperate determination, I struggle to break free from the great Sun Heavenly Lord's grasp. But because they are reconstructing my physical body and forming attraction force, I realize escape is not so simple. In my current state with only my soul remaining, the only thing I can do is, woo-woo, the 4 dimensions overlapping the astral realm. It is to cross into one of them. This damn. I stare at the 4 dimensions in stunned disbelief. In the Source River, the will of the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords is rampaging madly. Given that they are often referred to as the direct disciples of the Heavenly Venerable of Time, I realize that crossing into the Source River would only result in being captured by them. I gaze at the Eastern Heaven Flower Field and the underworld. Kuga-guga-gugu. I deep and old darkness. incomparable to the likes of the Great Sun, Heavenly Lord, or the Northern Dipper. 7 Heavenly Lords fills that place. Even the Eastern Heaven Flower Field, which is not even part of the Underworld's domain, seems to have been eroded by the darkness of the Oldest One, leaving it pitch black. Ah no, I can feel it, being caught by the Great Sun, Heavenly Lord, and advancing with the power of the forces of light, or entering the embrace of the Oldest One, and accepting life and death with my own strength to advance. I must choose between the two. If I choose the domain of life, I would be captured by the Great Sun, Heavenly Lord, and become a slave of the Radiance Hall. It would be an endless hell of having my shoulder toyed with by the Sword Spear, Heavenly Lord, every day. But if I choose the domain of death, I'll be caught by the Oldest One and be taxidermized for all eternity. It is quite literally a choice between life and death. If I die now, will I regress? I ponder, but I sense that things won't go that smoothly. The Oldest One can chase through regression. Moreover, that being has now abandoned their previously disinterested attitude, even eroding the domain of the Eastern Heaven Flower Field and pushing their will to the outskirts of the underworld in an effort to capture me. If I regress, I'll be caught. For what feels like an eternity within an instant, countless thoughts race through my mind. But soon, I realize something. Come to think of it, it's always been like this. Yes, I've always been forced to make cruel choices, agonizing over the path laid out before me. But upon reflection, there have always been other paths. It was simply that I hadn't been able to risk everything and challenge that other path. Can I do it? I turn my gaze away from the netherworld and the Great Sun, Heavenly Lord, looking instead at another dimension. The interdimensional void. The domain of death closest to the realm of purity. In a way, this challenge might lead me to eternal annihilation. Death. True and complete death. Can I throw away my life? I look back on my past lives. From the 0th cycle before regression, to the first cycle of the first regression, and all the way to my current life, the 999th cycle. In every one of those lives, I had truly given it my all. If I enter the Radiance Hall, I would live like a slave for life, but I would survive with hope for someday. If I enter the underworld, I don't know. There's even less information about that place. But one thing is clear. Even there, I would spend a suffocatingly long time. I can endure it, but I don't see much hope of seeing my comrades after passing that long time. As expected, no matter which choice I make, I would eventually grow distant from my connections. However, if I enter the true domain of death, I will be able to hold on to an even stronger hope. Even if I were to die here, I will leave my mark in the interdimensional void, a trace of the life I have lived, so that one day those who know me may see it. And the greatest truth in this world, I will become the stepping stone that allows my comrades to reach the domain of purity, which rivals fate itself. If we cannot meet in life, then let me reach my connections through death. I let go of my heart. From the beginning, I have never been attached to life. What I have longed for has always been a place where I can rest in peace. Kiriririk. Centered around my soul, an intangible haze begins to arise. This is Aurora, Jigong, polar light. I can sense the Great Sun, Heavenly Lord flinching. Even to such a powerful being, my choice seems unbelievable. From the domain of the Oldest One, a deep and meaningful vibration seems to resonate. Though I don't know their thoughts, I can tell my decision has slightly deviated from what they originally expected. Let's go, Impermanence Sword. Woo-woo. I transform into the form of Aurora, and with the immortal art that cloaks my soul, enveloping my entire life, I surge towards the interdimensional void, passing through the astral realm and reaching the interdimensional void. Only then do I finally realize something I hadn't before. My severing heaven is incomplete. Just as the true immortal advancement is done by the overlap of life and death, severing heaven must also experience both life and death to become complete. Let's go to the pure domain of death. I steel my heart to enter a completely new domain of purity, escaping the gaze of both the light and the netherworld, the deepest place where neither life nor death can be found. The technique designed to enter the domain of purity, Kunlun. And so, I arrive in the domain of death for the immortal Ascension, Shengshen, ritual. I do not know if this will sever regression and allow me to enter eternal rest. If I fail, my regression will probably end, and I will enter eternal rest. Later, my comrades will arrive in this domain of purity, and I will become their stepping stone to escape from the heavens. If I succeed, I will advance to true immortality and live again. Either way, it does not matter. Kiriririk. I feel something unpleasant pulling me in. This is undoubtedly the sensation of regression. As I feel my mind breaking apart within the domain of purity, I begin to completely perish myself, resisting the authority of regression pulling me. Will regression win? Or will Kunlun prevail? If regression wins, I will face the first day of my 1000th cycle. If I win, I will find complete eternal rest. Either outcome satisfies me, and so I slip into the domain purity and close my eyes. That is my 1000th return and, simultaneously, my immortal ascension ritual. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. This place is... I open my eyes, and what appears before my eyes is a candle emitting a pure white light. Somehow, that light seems similar to the one I saw on Penglai Island. The surroundings are an empty, dark space, with nothing but that candle. Suddenly, I realize that the clothes I'm wearing are the employee uniforms during the early days of Ascension Path. My body is that of Co Eun-hyun from Earth, a body untouched by any training, and I can't feel a trace of spiritual power or energy within me. It doesn't merely feel like I've been invited to an illusory dream world similar to Penglai Island. This feels much more fundamental than that. This is, yes, it feels as if my soul has been trapped entirely by my own history, by the possibilities of my past. As soon as I realize this, I feel goosebumps spreading across my entire body. This is... I can't breathe, because I've definitely experienced something familiar before. Flicker, flicker. The white candle in front of me flickers and seems to create an illusion before my eyes. It looks like an illusion of a girl living in the mountains, struggling to survive and working at a noble's house. Or perhaps an illusion of a nun who spent her life pursuing the truth. It even feels like an illusion of a ruler with two heads. However, more terrifying than those illusions is the being beyond the illusion. Heek, heek. Under a suffocating pressure that feels like my heart is being squeezed, I unknowingly fall to the ground in prostration. Unlike when I prostrated under Yang Sung's pressure before, this comes from deep within my heart. No, it's a fear rising from the depths of my very essence. Sarek, Sarek. The being beyond the illusion is drawing something. What I faintly see beyond the candle is a Tenghua, Jinghua. Sararak. When that being finishes drawing the Tenghua, the flickering illusion before my eyes fixes in place. It is someone with Kim Yun's face. The being opens their mouth. Has your journey thus far been satisfying? I tremble as cold sweat pours down. It seems that the move of Kunlun has ended in failure. No, perhaps it succeeded, which is why you've arrived here. The illusion of the candle, wearing Kim Yun's face, smiles faintly and speaks. It's reading me. Rather than attempting a clumsy scheme, I lower my head in respect towards the presence before me. This small one of the human path, Co Eun-hyun, greets the oldest one, the women who twisted history itself every time they were encountered. The heavenly venerable of the underworld, who chased through regressions by perusing history. The palace lord of the Black Ghost Valley, whom Yuo spoke of. They were all one and the same being. The deepest and greatest darkness. The oldest one, the heavenly venerable of the underworld. The god of death. They are the owner of the netherworld. Chapter 543, 1000 cycles first day. And her. Chapter 543, 1000 cycles first day. And her. Talk. A sound of a water droplet falling echoes from somewhere. In a dark, pitch-black space, I stand rendered powerless, beside the candle of the heavenly venerable of the underworld wearing the guise of Kim Yun. Everything about the situation feels suffocating. Sarek, Sarek. Behind the guise of Kim Yun, the being that seems to be the main body of the heavenly venerable of the underworld is doing something. Talk. A water dropper, Yangdi. TL. Basically a small vessel to hold inkstone water. It seems like water is being poured into a water dropper. A posture suggesting preparation for redrawing something. Talk. Once again, the sound of water falling into the water dropper echoes. Then, the figure of Kim Yun opens their mouth. To refer to yourself merely as one of the human path, your confidence is too low. Now that you have properly set foot into the Immortal family, you can afford to hold yourself in a higher regard. Immortal Co Eun-hyun. Has your journey thus far been satisfactory? I swallow hard. It feels like I can't carelessly let any words slip from my mouth. What if I foolishly answer, it was satisfactory, only to be eternally taxidermized? An amusing thought. Is it impossible to even hide my thoughts? What are you trying to hide before me? The one who has existed even before 11 governings, heavenly venerables, 2 powers of Mount Sumeru, and such systems existed as I. Simply by observing the flow of history, I can read most things. Speak whatever comes to mind. It is fine. I close my eyes tightly. So, has your journey thus far been satisfactory? Ever since I learned from the mountain divine spirit that recklessly opening one's mouth can lead to grave consequences, I have refrained from speaking careless words. I beg for your understanding, O Imperial Venerable. Recalling the tales I heard on Penglai Island, rumors and legends from here and there, the titles spoken by Bloodine, I address them with the most fitting title. One of the 2 thrones of the Buddhist family twin venerables. Wheel Imperial Venerable, Shun Di Zun. The owner of the wheel, is surely the being before me. The white wheel I glimpsed behind the heavenly venerable of the underworld in my past life still lingers vividly in my memory. At my words, they nod and smile. You've learned well from the mountain divine spirit. But haven't I told you before? Silence is golden, yet silence out of place can sometimes summon a blade. I do not fear blades, for I, myself, wield a blade. How can one swing a blade without the resolve to be struck by one? I clear my throat and gaze at the being beyond Kim Yun's visage. Deep and vast darkness. Yet, the main body of this being undoubtedly lies beyond there. And the Imperial Venerable has instructed me to speak, even when they have said that they are already reading everything about me. However, I am currently speaking not with the Imperial Venerable's true face, but to the shadow cast by a candle. How can I possibly offer the Imperial Venerable proper words under such circumstances? Ho ho! Wearing Kim Yun's face, the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld smiles. Do you not realize I am protecting you? Those who have not yet reached the rank of Lord Jin suffer tremendous shock from merely gazing directly at me. I am offering consideration for your sake. Yet, you reject even this kindness and instead reach to drink the punitive wine. Sararak. At that moment, the figure of Kim Yun begins to blur, and the presence of the darkness behind becomes slightly clearer. In that moment, I feel as though my breath stops and my head is about to shatter. Heek. Heeok. Kim Yun's form wavers, and I can now directly see the shadow of the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld. The outline of the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld comes into view. But just from that, my eyeballs start to decay and melt, and I feel my entire being filling with death. This is the difference in rank between the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld and I. As I feel this incomprehensible gap, I realize that even if I were to bring forth my entire main body and activate heaven, earth, heart, and will completely, the difference in rank between me and the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld would not narrow much further than it feels right now from my mortal state. However, I grit my teeth. Truly remarkable. But I have something I have accumulated. Even if what is stolen is eventually taken back, what I have accumulated will remain even if I die. Passasasasak. The pure white light of the candle begins to resonate with my will. Immortal cultivation is repentant enlightenment. Like tiny grains of salt gathering to form a sea. Build mountains through repentant enlightenment. Strengthening my will, I firmly uphold my spirit. Pat it. My life is the mountain built from everything I have accumulated. It will not crumble easily. Heck on. At that moment, I resist the pressure of the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld and realize something. Pat it. As soon as I realize it, I feel my cultivation and authority, once bound by the possibilities of the past, returning to me. Kaduduk. When I exert strength, a wheel emerges behind my head, and I can feel the authority of heaven, earth, heart, and wheel. But I realize something far more important than any of that. So that's it. Even though I used Kunlun and reached the domain of purity, the reason I arrived in the underworld, I am not truly in the underworld right now. Through the authority of the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld, only half of my consciousness has been dragged into the underworld. The other half remains overlapping in the domain of purity. The moment I realize this, I see a glimmer of hope, a chance to escape before the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld. Just then, ho ho, oh ho ho ho. The underworld begins to laugh. Kururum, kururum. The entire darkness trembles. Even though I have regained the authority of heaven, earth, heart, and wheel, I feel as though my breath is cut off again and my heart is being tightly squeezed. I thought wrong. Escape seems utterly impossible. What was shown to me was merely the tip of the iceberg, a mere speck of dust from a great mountain. The wheel behind my head feels as though it is about to be crushed under the laughter of the Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld. It is then, talk. The Heavenly Venerable of the Underworld stops laughing, and the illusion of Kim Yun before me becomes clear again. Hear me, judges. From this moment on, I shall have a private audience with this distinguished guest. All judges are to leave, manage your respective domains, and continue judging the deceased. At the words spilling from Kim Yun's mouth, 10 shadows flicker from beyond the darkness before disappearing somewhere. Judges? Like the Yama True Lord? I had no idea. Darkness completely concealed their presence, making it impossible to detect them. Escape? What nonsense. I clicked my tongue at my own misjudgment. If I had attempted to escape, the judges would have likely intervened and dragged me back. While I am sunk in my own self-deprecation, Kim Yun smiles faintly and offers me a bow. Indeed, you are worthy of inheriting Salt Sea's will, O Distinguished One. As I have reaffirmed that the Distinguished One is not someone to be treated carelessly, I offer thee this bow. However, while I may bow to thee as one individual to another, I ask for the understanding that I cannot do so while I am the leader of my group. Please lower the speech. How can the Imperial Venerable address a mere immortal with such respect? I break into a cold sweat, feeling burdened by the respectful tone of the being wearing Kim Yun's face. If this were from the perspective of Tae Yuljon or the girl from Soak Village, it might be different, but being addressed so formally by the heavenly venerable of the underworld feels so burdensome I might choke. It feels as though a king of a nation is showing respect to an ant. Even if one is no different from an ant, if they possess an enlightenment worthy of respect, they must be respected. What use is the status of a king in the face of enlightenment? And besides, you all are not ants, but rather existences no different from a Muggies. By you all, is the Imperial Venerable referring to the Enders? Rather than Enders, I prefer the title 7 Brilliances Kings. As the title suggests, you all are kings. If the domains of immortals are considered territories, then you all are already rulers who have inherited a kingdom. The eyes of darkness, wearing Kim Yun's face, meet mine. I feel burdened under that gaze. How much do you know about us? How long have you been watching me? I know enough. As for the Distinguished One, I became aware of thee when you faced your second death. When the first cycle ended and transitioned into the second, they've been watching since then. Goosebumps rise on my skin. I realize I have been within this being's grasp from the beginning. I feel a fleeting sense of kinship and comfort towards a being who knows my past, but the sheer difference in rank between us drowns out such thoughts almost instantly. Do you know of my ability? The Distinguished One meddles with history so frequently. How could I not know? After me, time has also noticed, and the other heavenly venerables should be sensing déjà vu. The supreme deities, after about 1,000 more deaths, will start feeling déjà vu as well. Except for one, that is. Who might that one be? I cannot say. Even if we are in the deepest depths of the underworld, if I speak of them, they will notice. Cannot say, but even with that, I can deduce some possibilities. Is it the light Yang Sujin spoke of? Even here, in the deepest depths of the underworld, they will notice when mentioned. It is truly a fearsome authority. I'm glad I managed to avoid being caught by the great young heavenly lord. Well, I'm not entirely sure about that. They are indeed insidious, but I flinch at the subtle reaction of the heavenly venerable of the underworld. It's not light, the being they're referring to, who noticed my ability? Is there another existence besides light? Yet, the heavenly venerable of the underworld only spoke evasively, avoiding speaking directly. Let's not press further. For now, it's not something I am meant to know. Quickly grasping the situation, I shift the topic. Previously, I encountered the lingering thought of the Golden Divine, who told me this. I heard that you capture and taxidermize us before we reach a certain level, but once we do, you instead support us. Then, does that mean I, gulp, swallowing, I face the darkness, have reached a level worthy of your support? But at my words, the heavenly venerable of the underworld smiles faintly. Indeed, the Distinguished One possesses remarkable enlightenment. As I said, thy rank is already akin to a ruler of a kingdom. However, in the end, the Distinguished One is still no different from a newborn. Chills. Her two eyes seem to flicker dangerously. The darkness within them glistens. The Distinguished One as he is now, holds no value to me other than being captured and taxidermized. Who would offer support to a worthless stone? But wasn't it the Imperial Venerable who helped me obtain the wheel? Ho ho. She lets out a chilling laugh. Even after I gave it to the Distinguished One, he only managed to use it to such a limited extent. Why should I offer the Distinguished One any more assistance? The more I speak, the deeper I feel myself sinking into a swamp. With an unreadable smile, she reaches out her hand. By the way, only the Distinguished One has been asking questions thus far. I apologize. However, the Distinguished One still hasn't answered my question. No matter how subtly the Distinguished One tries to avoid it, it cannot be done. So, answer me. Has the Distinguished One's journey thus far been satisfactory? Tingle, tingle. I can feel it. I still cannot grasp the true extent of the heavenly venerable of the underworld's rank, but heaven, earth, heart, wheel. Having reclaimed the power of my main body, I can now understand the intention behind that question. Yes, from the very beginning. She has only been thinking of capturing and taxidermizing me. If I answer, it was satisfying. I feel certain that my life will be eternally severed, and I will be imprisoned here in the deepest depths of the underworld. But even so, I cannot lie. Not because I fear the punishment that comes after the lie, but because I cannot deceive myself. My life, because I have truly lived to the best of my ability, it cannot be anything but satisfying. I will ask a few more questions. I look around at the surroundings and open my mouth. What time period am I in? What is the current point in time? The Distinguished One has recently experienced his 1,000th death. And when the Distinguished One was returning, I pulled the Distinguished One from the domain of purity, and we are now having this private conversation. Then, the current point in time is after Blood Een and Mai. After the battle. After that child annihilated himself, scattering the Distinguished One and the other heavenly kings to your respective heavenly domains. It is the point in time after the Distinguished One sent his will into the interdimensional void to advance to true immortality. Excuse me. For a moment, I cannot comprehend. What do you mean by that? That would mean, does the Distinguished One not understand? It means that it has been fixed. A splitting sensation pierces my head at those words. I feel sick, like I'm about to vomit. Whoosh. At that moment, the heavenly venerable of the underworld, wearing Kim Yun's face, sharply glares somewhere. After staring intently for a while, she relaxes her expression and looks back at me. The Distinguished One still has much to study. You don't even know what the condition is yet. My head feels dizzy, so the return point has been fixed again. And on top of that, the condition. Somehow, the heavenly venerable of the underworld seems to know the conditions for the fixation of the regression point. Could the imperial venerable perhaps tell me about the conditions for fixing the regression point? If you answer my question first, I will answer yours as well. Then I will ask a different question. Why is the imperial venerable trying to capture and imprison us? How precarious. What does she mean by precarious? She seems to hesitate for a moment at my words before opening her mouth, as if she made a big decision. Since failure is inevitable anyway, I am merely trying to stop the process from advancing. That is the best answer I can give you at this point in time. If the Distinguished One wishes to know more, then, at the very least, reach Great Net, and ask me then. It doesn't seem like much, but her words carry an ominous weight. Failure is inevitable anyway. Then, like Vast Cold, Yang Sujin, and the other enders before us. Does it mean such a miserable future awaits us as well? If that's the case, wouldn't it be better for me to simply be taxidermized by the heavenly venerable of the underworld? Perhaps, the heavenly venerable of the underworld doesn't intend to just taxidermize me. She might appoint me as a reaper or a judge of the underworld and train me. As for my comrades, I thought I wouldn't be able to see them again. But if they are killed and brought to the underworld, wouldn't we be able to be together again? It's a thought that seems more fitting for a devil of the devilish path. But after facing the heavenly venerable of the underworld and realizing that death itself isn't so frightening, my perspective has shifted slightly. As if noticing my change, the heavenly venerable of the underworld smiles warmly with Kim Yun's face and asks again. Now, can you answer my question? If, even in death, I can retain myself, how is that any different from merely moving to another heavenly domain? Even if this realm of death is entirely different from the realm of life. If one lived life satisfactorily, wouldn't they also be able to spend death satisfactorily? After contemplating for a while, I open my mouth. Yin Yang. As expected, I will answer the question later. However, after deliberation, it doesn't seem right to be taxidermized in the underworld right this instant. I still have the unresolved debt with the Great Mountain Supreme Deity, and things I must still accomplish in the realm of life. It is not an issue that needs to be immediately decided hastily. Even if I am to be taxidermized, it wouldn't be too late after I've done everything I can in life. Thus, I firm my resolve and answer accordingly. However, I notice something different in her expression. The kind expression Kim Yun wore just moments ago has stiffened, and she is now looking at me with a blank, expressionless face. Was delaying my answer that much of an offensive act? At that moment, the heavenly venerable of the underworld speaks with a rigid voice. It's something I feel every time, but it's deeply unpleasant. I deeply apologize. May I ask one final question? She remains silent with her stiffened face. You said you know all of my past, so I'll ask just one thing. Beyond the audience chamber you reached last time, what lies there? For a while, the heavenly venerable of the underworld remains silent, and in the silence following, she speaks. Yin Yang. At her following words, I feel a sense of confusion. Regrettably, I have never challenged the audience chamber, despite having countless opportunities. Isn't that truly such an unpleasant and resentful thing? I feel puzzled by her words. What? In the past life, the heavenly venerable of the underworld joined forces with the Great Mountain Supreme Deity, the Sal Tree Heavenly Venerable, and the owner of Liberation to challenge the audience chamber. And the owner of Void told me, the underworld always returns. Moreover, the heavenly venerable of the underworld perceives my regression and knows all the history that follows from it. So what on earth does she mean by that? But without giving me even the chance to ask for detail, she stares at me with a cold and chilling expression and speaks. I will ask you for the last time. Was your journey satisfying? This is ominous. This feels different from before. For some reason, I realize that one of my previous questions must have touched her reverse scale. This is dangerous. I apologize. I cannot answer that right now. I see. Having finished speaking, she closes her mouth. Between her and me, a dreadful silence flows. I feel as though if I remain here in this silence any longer, I will be swallowed whole by it. I must not remain here any longer. Baduduk. Facing the dreadful rank of the heavenly venerable of the underworld head-on, I begin to rise from my seat. Thank you for the invitation, oh, oldest one. I shall take my leave now. If the opportunity arises, I will return to answer the Imperial Venerable's question. Please wait just a little longer until then. There is no response. Instead, the shadow of the candle bearing Kim Yun's face begins to decay. Kim Yun's face distorts. Soon, behind the rotting and crumbling face, a pure white skull emerges, and even that melts into a handful of darkness. Feeling alarm bells ringing throughout my body, I quickly retreat from where I stood. Immediately after, the candle begins to blaze. The flame changes shape and instantly surges towards me. It resembles a gold-colored Peng, heart, and heaven Tingwa painting. First brilliance. Golden body heavenly king. Flash. Quang. Blocking the familiar golden strike, I smirk. Yes, the calm and enigmatic conversation from earlier is now over. I'm not entirely sure what I did, but I have touched the heavenly venerable of the underworld's reverse scale, and that being is now completely mobilizing her hidden authority to personally taxidermize me. Heart and heaven Tingwa painting. Second brilliance. Third brilliance. Red bead extinguishing heavenly king. Lapis lazuli protecting heavenly king. The golden-colored Peng seems to shift into red and blue light before transforming into twin palms that crash down towards me. The authority of destruction and protection overlaps me from both sides. One side cuts off my retreat, while the other aims to destroy my body. I deflect the twin palms with the impermanence sword and focus my mind. In my current situation, the regression point has been fixed, and while I was heading towards the domain of purity, I was temporarily pulled into the underworld by the heavenly venerable of the underworld. Therefore, if I proceed to the domain of purity and fully accept both life and death within true death, I will either advance to true immortality or face eternal annihilation. I'm going. I assume the stance of Kunlun. Heart and heaven Tingwa painting has already shifted its form, morphing into purple primordial chaos. I can feel it. Once caught in that chaos, there is no escape. I must not use Sumeru. Using the power of the underworld to escape the realm of the underworld is madness. Therefore, I must escape this situation with Kunlun alone. But, can I really escape? The heavenly venerable of the underworld said that it was precisely because I used Kunlun that I ended up here. That means, Kunlun alone isn't enough to fully reach the domain of purity, and instead leaves me stranded ambiguously in the underworld. I must transcend Kunlun. Kunlun is not enough. I need a supreme technique. Something that can let me reach the domain of purity even more completely. Impermanent sword? Severing heaven sword form? No. My senses are pushed to their extreme limits. The 5 senses that perceive all 4 dimensions, starting with the planes. I must reach the domain of purity beyond this. For that, I need what I have accumulated. What I have accumulated. What has been with me from the very beginning. Something that, like the simple thrust of Kunlun, has always been with me. Tatadat. Perceiving the sense related to the domain of purity, I begin to charge forward. It's a gamble. A gamble possible only because one half is anchored in the underworld and the other half in the domain of purity. I rush quickly toward the heavenly venerable of the underworld. It starts with Mountain Lord transcending peaks flight. Like a great tiger, I sprint through the deep darkness, raising the impermanence sword high. Then, I leap over the being behind the mountain-like deep darkness. There beyond, I see a white wheel. But that isn't my goal. Deeper than the oldest one, the deepest depths of the underworld. This place is, yes, it's where the strand of Yang Sujin's split soul and I once conversed. I feel the gaze of the heavenly venerable of the underworld turning towards me. At the same time, heart and heaven Tingwa painting. 7th brilliance. I feel the terrifying entering heavens of the heavenly venerable of the underworld following me. But I have already arrived. The single move, Yisho, that has been with me my entire life. At the same time, the seed that can bloom into new potential. Record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts. Transcendent technique. Surpassing even hidden heavens beyond the path, a fragment of true martial arts. Heavenly escape, Tandun. At last, the record of transcending cultivation and exhausting martial arts, honed throughout my entire life, surpasses even the possibilities of hidden heavens beyond the path and fully blossoms into its fullest potential. Avoiding light, avoiding the underworld. Escaping from the gazes of life, death, and everything. Completing hiding into the domain of purity, the ultimate of impermanence. The supreme technique of the ages, capable of hiding even from the heavens, heavenly escape, has been completed. Chwereric. My single strike cuts through the deepest depths of the underworld and reaches a domain even deeper than the underworld itself. A space of true nothingness. It's the domain of purity. I leap into the domain of purity, throwing my entire body forward, and gaze upward at the underworld. The eyes of the underworld are visible. Haha, so you let me go. I did not escape. The underworld merely tested me. However, it seems I have indeed touched upon her reverse scale, as I can feel a faint trace of anger from the heavenly venerable of the underworld. I close my eyes to the death that now truly approaches me. Now I will die. I will either truly die and face eternal annihilation, or I will return through regression and advance as a true immortal. The first attempt resulted in me being caught and having a brief meeting with the underworld, but this time, no one will catch me. And so I die, to escape from the realms of life and death, from everything. To obscure myself from even the heavens, I hurl myself into true death. Whether I will succeed or fail in death, only the heavens know. The 1000 cycle has truly been short. However, I believe that this brief moment in my current life holds deeper meaning than any of the previous cycles. I will die, but if I don't, I will return, and upon returning, I will become a true immortal, save my comrades, care for my connections once more, and bring everything to a conclusion. As I fade away in the domain of purity, I capture with my eyes the final illusion and wisdom shown by the heavenly venerable of the underworld. That wisdom is as follows. Kim Young-hoon, good sight heavenly domain, San Jan Tanyu. John Myong-hoon, bearing tree heavenly domain, Danmu Tingyu. Kong Min-hee, twin holding heavenly domain, Songtru Tingyu. Oh Hyun-suk, elephant nose heavenly domain, Sang Bi Tingyu. Kim Yun, earth boundary heavenly domain, Di Ban Tanyu. Oh Hi Seo, earth axis heavenly domain, Di Dong Tingyu. My comrades. In other words, locations of the enders scattered by blood-een. With that as my final sight, I close my eyes completely. That is my 1001st return. Good sight heavenly domain. Inside the interdimensional void where the owner of void resides. Somewhere within that interdimensional void, a girl with her hair tied in a ponytail and dressed in black martial robes half opens her eyes. Looking somewhere, she speaks. Are you finally beginning to bloom, Adumbra? Oh. In her eyes, which had remained expressionless and devoid of meaning, something flickers. It is a faint sense of anticipation. Good. Keep blooming. Then fully blossom. However, despite the anticipation, her eyes remain empty. You may have plunged into death, but you cannot escape. The bridal of the end, Zhongming, is far beyond what you. Just as she is about to deliver her words to someone, she suddenly feels a disgusting and terrifying gaze. She meets the gaze coming from somewhere, before flinching in surprise and looking away. It's almost as if she is afraid of the owner of that gaze. After maintaining silence for a while, she speaks again. Let Adumbra fully blossom. And when it fully blossoms, with a self-deprecating look, she closes her eyes once more. Let it come and cut my neck. Thus, the northern heavenly venerable, true martial great emperor, Hien Mu, Shu, black martial, closes her eyes. Around her, a black, three great ultimates seems to ripple before her form dissolves into the interdimensional void and vanishes completely. After the fragment of Yu Hao Te, the nether devil true lord and former chief judge, self-destructed against the return of vast cold in the sun and moon heavenly domain. The 3,000 great thousand worlds. The countless rulers of Mount Sumeru trembled violently. Everyone knows. What Yu Hao Te's resurrected body, blood-een, has ultimately done was to advance the second coming of vast cold to true immortality. The probability of advancement to true immortality upon revival after death is unknowable. However, countless rulers are now on edge. If it succeeds, then the nightmare from 500,000 years ago will descend upon Mount Sumeru once again. Countless heavenly lords, Kinjin, and true lords, Junjin. The great net immortals, Daloshan, murmur and communicate amongst one another. And so, at the edge of the chaotic Mount Sumeru, within the sun and moon heavenly domain, outside the range of Blood Yin's self-destruction and unnoticed by Blood Yin's awareness, a small figure rises to their feet. It is Hong Fan, who had tumbled down below the wonderfully mysterious fortress and briefly lost consciousness. Regaining his senses, Hong Fan begins to move again to track the traces of his master, Seo Eunhyun. Chapter 544, Black Snake Biting Its Tail. Chapter 544, Black Snake Biting Its Tail. The third seat of the Radiance 8 Immortals. The great sun, Heavenly Lord, compresses the sun surrounding their projection. So it escaped in the end. Even when the projections of the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lord were sent, they hadn't been particularly concerned. The destruction of a heavenly domain? What kind of living being could possibly wield such power? It was absolutely impossible. They had simply assumed that Baek Woon, who had reported it, had gone senile. After all, being impaled by Yang Sujin's lightning spear for tens of thousands of years, It's inevitable she would eventually go mad. So even when the subordinate true immortal under Radiance Hall said they casually requested assistance from the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lord and Yang Sung, they hadn't thought much of it. Yang Sung acts according to his whims and is unlikely to move anyway, and the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords, who have ventured out to the outer sea for exploration, would likely only send 1 or 2 projections at most among the 7, even if they were struck by a sudden surge of goodwill. After those measures were taken, they stopped paying attention. At present, the more urgent issue was dealing with the suspicious movements of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity in the Earth Axis Heavenly Domain. Or so it should have been. The Great Sun Heavenly Lord recalls that moment. The flow of time has twisted. The flow of the predetermined annihilation has been extinguished. As requested, we shall descend. Please, provide a detailed explanation regarding this matter. Open the gate of the Sun and Moon Heavenly Domain. We shall descend our projections upon our disciples. The Radiance 8 Immortals had thought that the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords had collectively gone insane. What began from a trivial request for salvation from a lowly being like Baek Woon resulted in the direct disciples of a Heavenly Venerable, the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords, to personally descend upon the Sun and Moon Heavenly Domain. If the Great Sun Heavenly Lord hadn't personally observed the situation in the Sun and Moon Heavenly Domain, they would have believed that the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords had betrayed the Radiance Hall and were scheming to open a path to the Sun and Moon Heavenly Domain. However, in the Sun and Moon Heavenly Domain, the Great Mountain Supreme Deity's phenomena extinguishing mantra was being activated more intensely than ever before. The Radiance 8 Immortals could not help but be enraged. The reason for the Great Mountain Supreme Deity's suspicious behavior immediately became clear. They were planning something through the terminal in the Sun and Moon Heavenly Domain. The entirety of Mount Sumeru knows well of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity's sinister schemes. Though they might appear overtly tyrannical, they are notorious for being a profoundly cunning and sinister individual. Thus, the living being using that phenomena-extinguishing mantra must undoubtedly be either the Great Mountain Supreme Deity's terminal or a slave bound within their prophecy. Even so, it would be fine if the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords sent their projections directly. That's what they thought. And so, the Radiance 8 Immortals, including the Great Sun Heavenly Lord, focused even more on sealing the Great Mountain Supreme Deity. The Great Mountain Supreme Deity is indeed fearsome, but the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords personally dispatched their projections. Moreover, their disciples who revered the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords were present in the Sun and Moon Heavenly Lord. While those so-called disciples were, in truth, no better than scraps, they were still quasi-mortal rank beings in their own right. If those disciples joined forces with the projections of the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords, their combined strength would effectively amount to 10 true immortals. No matter how much power one living being wielded through the phenomena-extinguishing mantra, they could not possibly overcome the strength of 10 true immortals. Thinking this, the Radiance 8 Immortals focused solely on the Earth Axis Heavenly Domain. Then, the projections of the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords were annihilated. It was said their disciples were utterly defeated and scattered. When they first heard this news, the Radiance 8 Immortals, including the Great Sun Heavenly Lord, were displeased. They thought the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords were playing a joke unbefitting their rank. However, it was ultimately revealed to be true, and the Radiance Hall was thrown into utter chaos. If those words were true, then right now in the Sun and Moon Heavenly Domain, a nightmare on the level of the vast cold Heavenly Lord in their youth has reappeared. Moreover, the vast cold Heavenly Lord is wielding the phenomena-extinguishing mantra, a being with potential rivaling the vast cold Heavenly Lord, in collaboration with the Great Mountain Supreme Deity. Just the thought alone is horrifying. Because of this, among the Radiance 8 Immortals, who were monitoring the Earth Axis Heavenly Domain, it was decided for one of them to directly move their projection. It would cause some mental distraction, but the situation left no other choice. The Sword Spear Heavenly Lord insisted vehemently on going themselves, but since their presence is needed to suppress the movements resonating in the Earth Axis Heavenly Domain, they could not send their projection. In the end, the third seat of the Radiance 8 Immortals, the Great Sun Heavenly Lord, took action. And the moment the Great Sun Heavenly Lord descended, what they witnessed was the final moment of the true immortal Blood-Een, who had already engaged in a fierce battle with the return of Vast Cold, and was now sacrificing his life in a self-destructive explosion. Kugagagugagu, a filthy remnant of the past dares. If this were Yu Hao Te, the Nether Devil True Lord in his prime, they would have honored his nobility. But this wretched leftover, claiming to be Yu Hao Te without knowing his place. To the Great Sun Heavenly Lord, someone like Blood-Een was nothing more than filth to be swept away. Although Blood-Een managed to scatter the Great Sun Heavenly Lord's gaze briefly by self-destructing immediately after their descent, he ultimately failed to conceal the truth. Through their winged garments, the great sun, Heavenly Lord, grasped everything that has happened here. Yes, Enders, or beings also referred to as the Seven Brilliances King. The highest wisdoms, which the likes of leftovers like Blood-een are incapable of even remembering, had been present there. Have they already been born again? For the true purpose of the Radiance Hall, several conditions must be met, and one of them is the annihilation of the Enders. That filth. Did he self-destruct in the end to scatter the Enders across the various heavenly domains? It is impossible to determine exactly which heavenly domains they've been scattered to. This is because in his final moments, Blood-een made history unreadable through history revision. In matters of history, the Great Sun, Heavenly Lord, cannot match Blood-een's expertise, and so they decide to abandon the effort to locate the exact positions of the Enders. Instead, they send their will to the Radiance Hall. The will of the Great Sun, Heavenly Lord, that reaches Radiance Hall also reaches countless heavenly domains. True immortals under the Radiance Hall and fellow allies heed the decree. All living beings directly under the Radiance Hall in the Heavenly King, Heavenly Domain respond. The will of the owner of Void, an ally of the Radiance Hall from the Good Sight Heavenly Domain, responds. The will of the owner of Names, an ally from the Elephant Nose Heavenly Domain, responds. Every living being directly under the Radiance Hall in the Bearing Tree Heavenly Domain responds. In the directly ruled Horse Ear Heavenly Domain, a sealed being unleashes thunder, but the Great Sun, Heavenly Lords, will ignores it and resounds throughout the Horse Ear Heavenly Domain. In the Earth Boundary Heavenly Domain, a faint response comes from the will of the owner of Liberation, a quasi-ally of the Radiance Hall. In the Source River, the will of the Northern Dipper 7 Heavenly Lords, affiliated with Radiance Hall, responds. In the Eastern Heaven Flower Field, the will of the owner of the Flower Field, an ally of the Radiance Hall, responds. Almost every heavenly domain on Mount Sumru, except for the Sun and Moon Heavenly Domain, the Earth Axis Heavenly Domain, and the Twin Holding Heavenly Domain, responds to the Radiance Hall's decree. The filth left behind by Yu Hao Te has scattered seeds of calamity across countless heavenly domains. Seeds of calamity, or disaster. One of the ominous titles the Radiance Hall uses to refer to the Enders. All beings who distort the predetermined celestial energy must be reported to Radiance Hall. True immortals under Radiance Hall shall descend to eliminate these disasters who twist the celestial energy. The will of the Great Sun, Heavenly Lord, spreads across countless heavenly domains, and each domain responds in its own way. The Great Sun, Heavenly Lord, recalls the situation after they deliver the decree. In the end, the Ender who wields power worthy of being called the Return of Vast Cold, the being named Seo Unhyun, could not be captured. The vast cold of that era also escaped from the grasp of Radiance Hall solely through the power of the soul, and advanced to true immortality in their own way. The Great Sun, Heavenly Lord, grips the physical body of Seo Unhyun they have brought into their hands. Seo Unhyun's body is crushed instantly, turning into a flesh pancake. From behind their mask, the Great Sun, Heavenly Lord's eyes gleam. They tremble as they sense an ominous foreboding. Even that vast cold, during their advancement, received aid within the embrace of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity. But just how can this Ender? Though he received the support of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity, he advanced through the interdimensional void and leapt into the domain of purity solely through his own means, advancing by himself. Perhaps he might become an even more fearsome Ender than Vast Cold. And you have interfered again, Great Mountain. In front of the Earth Axis Heavenly Domain, the Great Sun, Heavenly Lord, murmurs directly with their main body along with the Radiance 8 Immortals. Even 500,000 years ago in the era of Vast Cold. Even 40,000 years ago during the Supreme Deity advancement of Bong Mayong. And even today, I have lost count how many times your sinister schemes have come to fruition. Kugagugagu. The Radiance 8 Immortals push open the gates of the Earth Axis Heavenly Domain. Above their heads, a resplendently brilliant seed of radiance rises. Today, we shall punish you. Kun. The entrance to the Earth Axis Heavenly Domain opens. Shi. The stellar wind between dimensions howls, and the Radiance 8 Immortals shudder. And in the next moment. How? What have you done, Rheon? The Radiance 8 Immortals roar furiously toward the now absent Great Mountain Supreme Deity, who has vanished without even birds or rats knowing from within the Earth Axis Heavenly Domain. Kugagugagugu. Combining their strength, the Radiance 8 Immortals summon the authority of light and set the entire Earth Axis Heavenly Domain ablaze. But the Great Mountain Supreme Deity is nowhere to be seen. The sealed Great Mountain Supreme Deity has vanished without a trace. The entire Sumeru Mountain trembles. Now, the return of Vast Cold no longer seems like such an urgent matter. For the most fearsome devil god in the history of Mount Sumeru has escaped their seal and is now hiding somewhere in the Palace of Light located in the Heavenly King Heavenly Domain. At the center of that palace, the Radiance 8 Immortals gather around the round table of radiance. Has the Great Sun not arrived yet, Great Forest? Do not rush, Pearl Jade. A reply has come from the owner of names. Great Mountain has abandoned their immortal title and concealed themselves. Instead of their immortal title, a new immortal registry created under the Great Mountain Supreme Deity's true name will soon arrive from the Elephant Nose Heavenly Domain. Through it, we might discern their movements. How can a hastily created immortal registry accurately reveal Great Mountain's location and movements? At best, it will only show whether their prophecy is being fulfilled. Even that would be monumental. Through it, we can sufficiently locate the Great Mountain. At the center of the Palace of Radiance, inside the meeting chamber of the Radiance Hall, excluding the Great Sun Heavenly Lord, the 8 Immortals have gathered. The first seat of the Radiance 8 Immortals, Great Forest Heavenly Lord, Dalin Tanjin. Second seat, Flower Plant Heavenly Lord, Watak Tenjin. Fourth seat, Torch Candle Heavenly Lord, Dongju Tenjin. Fifth seat, Sword Spear Heavenly Lord, Janji Tenjin. Sixth seat, Pearl Jade Heavenly Lord, Ju Tenjin. Seventh seat, Great Sea Heavenly Lord, Dun Tenjin. Eighth seat, Rain Dew Heavenly Lord, Lu Tenjin. The 7 Heavenly Lords exchange countless opinions among themselves as they wait for the new immortal registry promised by the Great Sun Heavenly Lord and the owner of the names. Then, all of a sudden, flash, one entering Nirvana true person enters the meeting hall at the speed of light, holding up a scroll and presenting to them. The naming supreme deity has completed the new immortal registry and has sent it to the rulers of the Heavenly King Heavenly Domain. The first seat of the Radiance 8 Immortals, the Great Forest Heavenly Lord, nods and gestures with their hand. Sururuk. At their gesture, the immortal registry floats above the round table surrounded by the Radiance 8 Immortals. Twerak. As the Great Forest Heavenly Lord gestures again, the immortal registry unfurls. The registry displays the pinnacle of Sumer Mountain, the symbols and names of the 11 governings. The 4 heavenly venerables and 7 supreme deities are inscribed upon it. Blackened 3 great ultimates. The transparent seed. 6 interconnected stars. White wheel. Lightning spear. Sun and moon pair of eyes. Bird trapped in a cage. Black sun. Taiji in the shape of a fetus. Mountain exuding darkness. Black snake biting its tail. Upon seeing these 11 symbols, the Radiance 8 Immortals bow in respect and acknowledgement of their ranks and achievements. However, after offering their respects, most of them simultaneously glare upon the symbol of the mountain exuding darkness. That vile traitor. Just what do they expect to change by crying out for repentant enlightenment while committing the most wicked of deeds? The path of our Radiance Hall has always been obstructed by Great Mountain, more than even the underworld. Just as anger begins to spread among the Radiance 8 Immortals. Sururuk, 8th seat of the Radiance 8 Immortals. The Rain Dew Heavenly Lord raises one hand. At the gesture of the Rain Dew Heavenly Lord, who wears a dark blue mask, the Radiance 8 Immortals simultaneously fall silent. Excessive. At that single word, the Radiance 8 Immortals collectively close their mouths. Do not reveal your emotions. We need no emotions beyond our roles as tools. At the cold words of the Rain Dew Heavenly Lord, the Radiance 8 Immortals calm their agitation and resume their conversation in hushed tones. Is it already 7 supreme deities? It has been 40,000 years since the enthronement of Bong Mayon. Who could have imagined it? That the heavenly craftsman once called the left arm of the underworld would be enthroned as the liberation supreme deity and escape the embrace of the underworld. Why not entrust matters regarding the Enders to them? They have always sought to use Enders as materials. Let us appoint the Liberation Supreme Deity as the chief overseer of tracking the Enders. They have always sought to form a proper alliance with us, and through this achievement, we can include them in the alliance of the Radiance Hall. It's when the covenants of the Heavenly Lords are about to be made. Warwick. The sun rises in front of the round table. It is the 3rd seat of the Radiance 8 Immortals, the Great Sun Heavenly Lord. Why are you so late, Great Sun? At the reprimand of the Great Forest Heavenly Lord, the Great Sun Heavenly Lord, wearing a reddish-yellow mask, raises something before them. It is a fragment of flesh. This is the vestige of the Ender called the Return of Vast Cold that I obtained through my projection. The Return of Vast Cold has learned the phenomena extinguishing mantra, so I took this fragment and briefly ventured out into the outer sea, just in case. At the words of the Great Sun Heavenly Lord, the Radiance 8 Immortals nod. I see. You resonated it with the domain of Salt Sea, the original owner of the phenomena extinguishing mantra? That's right. And, through it, I discovered one thing. What is it? The location of Penglai Island, Penglai Da. At those words, the Radiant's 8 immortals collectively shudder. Penglai Island was in the outer sea. While I cannot track its exact location, the Great Mountain Supreme Deity is surely hiding there. For a moment, silence flows over the round table. After a while, the Rain-Dew Heavenly Lord nods. Excellent. Receiving praise from the Rain-Dew Heavenly Lord, the Great Sun Heavenly Lord shudders and clutches the fragment of Seo Eunhyun's flesh even more tightly. By the way, this immortal would like to study it. It has served its purpose, so do as you wish. The Great Sun Heavenly Lord hands Seo Eunhyun's flesh fragment, his vestige, to the Sword Spear Heavenly Lord, and then looks up at the newly arrived immortal registry. There, in the order of each governing immortal symbols, their names are listed. Northern Heavenly Venerable, True Martial Great Emperor, Jinwudadi. Eastern Heavenly Venerable, Flower Monarch, Wangong. Southern Heavenly Venerable, True Ultimate Eternal Life, Great Emperor, Junji Changsheng Dadi. Western Heavenly Venerable, Netherworld Queen Mother, Ngu. Heavenly Punishment Supreme Deity, Du Gan, Tuichan. Emptiness, Shukong, Supreme Deity, Myong Woon, Ng. Liberation Supreme Deity, Bong Myong, Feng. Swallowing Heaven Supreme Deity, Haiyan Riel, Shao. Naming Supreme Deity, Haiyan Rang, Shalong. Great Mountain Supreme Deity, Guak Am, Ga. These are the names inscribed in the new immortal registry. The Great Sun Heavenly Lord looks at these names and reflects. At some point, new names have filled the immortal registry, while others have been erased. A great upheaval is now about to sweep across the world. Once again, we are entering an era of great chaos. The Great Sun Heavenly Lord walks towards the round table where the immortal registry floats. Arriving before the table, they bow towards the name at the very bottom of the immortal registry. Along with them, the Great Forest Heavenly Lord, Flower Plant Heavenly Lord, Torch Candle Heavenly Lord, Sword Spear Heavenly Lord, Pearl Jade Heavenly Lord, Great Sea Heavenly Lord, and Rain Dew Heavenly Lord. All of the Radiance 8 immortals rise and bow towards the name at the very bottom. Radiance Supreme Deity, Gongming, Sangdi. Hyuksa, Heisa Black Snake. Glory to the Radiance Supreme Deity. Only then do the Radiance 8 immortals, now fully assembled, begin their proper meeting. In the center of Radiance Hall, where the Great Sun Heavenly Lord has been admitted, the doors of the round table chamber close. Kayaik, Kwang. At the same time, the symbol engraved on the doors of the round table chamber, the symbol of the Radiance Hall. The symbol of the black snake biting its tail glows brightly, sealing the space so that no one in the 3,000 great thousand worlds can eavesdrop on the conversation of the Radiance 8 immortals. Now, within this space, a momentous meeting that will decide the fate of the entire universe begins. The fate of the 3,000 great thousand worlds is once again on the verge of being reshaped. Somewhere in the sun and moon heavenly domain. There, Hong Fan wipes his sweat and builds a massive altar atop a planet. You are challenging the true immortal advancement, Master. He realizes that Seo Eunhyun has begun his immortal ascension. As faint memories of his past life resurface, he understands how he can best assist Seo Eunhyun and acts accordingly. I will assist to the best of my ability. Please return safely. Hong Fan, more sincerely than anyone else, prays for the safe return of Seo Eunhyun and waits endlessly for Seo Eunhyun's return. As long as we exist beneath this sky, I will forever serve Master with heartfelt loyalty. So please, safely complete the immortal ascension ritual and return to us. In a corner of the sun and moon heavenly domain, Hong Fan's voice, filled with hope for Seo Eunhyun's safety, softly echoes. Author's note. Hello, dear readers. The long Middle Realm arc has finally come to an end. It was a journey filled with many ups and downs, and much was said throughout this arc, but ultimately, it has reached its conclusion. I would love to leave a long afterword for the end of the Middle Realm arc, but as the deadline approaches, I'll have to post it separately on my blog. In any case, it was indeed a long Middle Realm arc. With the end of this arc, I plan to take a 1-month break to further refine the story of Regressor's tale of cultivation, which I have been sprinting through like crazy with all my might. The planned return date is September 1st, as summer's heat begins to fade and the power of the Great Sun Heavenly Lord slightly diminishes. To all the readers who have loved the Middle Realm arc thus far, thank you so much, and I, too, love you all. See you again soon. Translator notes. So, based on the way I've been using the terms, Hugung versus owner of void should actually be owner of emptiness, and emptiness supreme deity should be void supreme deity. The word Hung, used for void in void shattering, is the same word used as emptiness in emptiness supreme deity, and also as void in the Akashic records, void record. On the other hand, The word used for void in owner of void and interdimensional void has been translated as emptiness elsewhere in the story. In short, whenever you see the word void, it's referring to which is also used as emptiness only in the context emptiness supreme deity. And whenever you see the word emptiness, it's referring to which has also been translated as void only for owner of void and interdimensional void. Chapter 545, Ascension 3. A long dream and illusion. In a world of chaos, seemingly eternal, where the boundary between unconsciousness and consciousness is blurred. In the domain of purity, I finally open my eyes. No, it feels strange now to use the phrase open my eyes. I no longer have a physical body, so there are no eyes to close or open. Rather than that expression, saying, I regain consciousness seems more appropriate. There is only one task for me now that I have regained consciousness. From deep within my instincts. No, from a realm even more fundamental than that. It is pointing out what I must do and where I must go. In this absolute void, Shikung, this realm of nothingness, Wu, I must align my enlightenments with the realm of existence, that gave birth to the being that is me, forming the Taiji. I can sense that the realms of life and death are converging into Taiji, and being accepted into me. I recognize that I am becoming an existence that transcends life and death itself. I recall the entire path of immortal cultivation that I have walked thus far. At the Qi gathering, Denshu, stage, I accepted the yin-yang, 5 elements, and primordial chaos, laying the foundation for immortal cultivation. At the first star of Qi refining, I activated the spiritual meridians of the 72 earthly fiends. At the second star of Qi refining, I condensed the spiritual natures of the 36 heavenly spirits within my body. At the third star of Qi refining, I attuned my body to the spiritual power waves of the 12 earthly melodies. At the fourth star of Qi refining, I internalized the symbols of the 10 heavenly stems and learned the foundations of formations. At the fifth star of Qi refining, I mastered the flow of the 9 palaces within my body. At the sixth star of Qi refining, I further refined the flow of the 9 palaces into the 8 trigrams. At the 7th star of Qi refining, I performed the 7 stars ritual and received the world's permission to walk the path of immortal cultivation. At the 8th star of Qi refining, I stimulated my consciousness through the 6 harmonies, all paths, and adapted my body further to spiritual energy. At the 9th star of Qi refining, I specialized my attributes through the 5 elements' true meanings. At the 10th star of Qi refining, I stabilized the internal flow of spiritual energy I created to create the twin meridians of Yin meridian and Yang meridian through the 4 symbols' 2 meanings. At the 11th star of Qi refining, I created a spiritual pathway through my upper, middle, and lower dantians through heaven-earth-man unification. At the 12th star of Qi refining, I integrated the twin meridians of Yin meridian and Yang meridian into a single meridian through 2 meanings combined to 1. At the 13th star of Qi refining, I created a condensed core of spiritual energy within my body through 1 origin, 1 convergence. TL, previously translated as unified origin. At the 14th star of Qi refining, I detonated that condensed core, forming a spiritual cloud and laying the foundation for entering the Qi building stage. The Qi refining stage can be summarized as the process for mortals to become accustomed to spiritual energy. Looking back, the proper foundation of immortal cultivation seems to begin at the Qi building stage. The early, mid, late, and grand perfection stages of Qi building. First constellation, horn, neck, root, room, heart, tail, winnowing basket. Second constellation, ladle, ox, girl, emptiness, rooftop, chamber, wall. Third constellation, legs, bond, stomach, hairy head, net, beak, triple stars. Fourth constellation, well, ghost, willow, star, extended net, wing, chariot. Through the formula of each stage, I condensed spiritual natures within me, rehearsing for the star-shattering stage. Moreover, I grasped the starting point for acquiring attraction force by forming stars within my body, laying the foundation for heaven. Reflecting on it now, the condensation of spiritual natures during the Qi building stage was ultimately the first step towards understanding attraction force. The early, mid, late, and grand perfection stages of core formation. Heavenly market enclosure. Its form commands without adornment. Supreme palace enclosure. Its service commands reverence. Purple forbidden enclosure. Its nurturing commands benevolence. Celestial dominion. Its duty commands righteousness. Through the formula of each stage, I divided the domain of heaven, created a path through which spiritual natures could move, and at the same time, made my body both the people and the nation, crowning my soul as the king, and turned myself into an altar. Looking back, the most important thing in the core formation stage was to divide the domain of heaven to create a path, allowing the spiritual natures to operate. Nascent soul stage. From the nascent soul stage, one condenses the nascent soul. This nascent soul can be described as an armor of spiritual energy donned by the spirit, as well as a tool that allows one's will to interfere with reality itself. Furthermore, as chi becomes densely compressed to its utmost limit, it serves as a starting point to transcend the plane of chi and catch glimpses of other planes. The early, mid, late, and grand perfection stages of nascent soul, as constant as the moon, as the rising of the sun, as long-lived as the 5 great mountains, unswerving and uncollapsing. In the golden core where only the concept of heaven existed, the moon is engraved to create night, and the sun is engraved to create day. Then, by establishing the 5 great mountains to create the 4 directions, the concept of earth is established for the first time, and the directions are symbolized as the pillars supporting the heaven. Afterward, by combining all these concepts and reflecting on oneself, once again, the heaven and earth, along with all their forms and transformations, are absorbed into oneself to perfect the nascent soul even further. Thus, the nascent soul stage is completed. The heavenly being stage. Spring, will to become an immortal established. Summer, unswayed amidst the heavenly mandate. Autumn and winter, heavenly compliance, heart's governance. Although various principles are attached, the most important formulas across the early, mid, and late stages of the heavenly being stage ultimately revolve around spring, summer, autumn, and winter. These are considered the formulas of the 4 seasons. Paralleling human life to the flow of the 4 seasons are the formulas attached to spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And the formula that comes after the winter of life, acceptance at fate's end. Along with this is the immensely long formula of vast cold. The formula of acceptance at fate's end teaches that after winter, human life comes to its end, Zhongming. In other words, it teaches that fate reaches its conclusion. However, the formula of vast cold states that the 4 seasons continue endlessly. It does not deny that people die, but, even in death, it suggests that one continues through someone else. If the formula of acceptance at fate's end feels like a warning that says, begin immortal cultivation while prepared to die along the way, then the formula of vast cold feels like a reassurance, saying, even if you die while walking the path of immortal cultivation, your will shall continue, so do not worry. When comparing these 2 formulas, the feeling is quite strange. Next comes the 4-axis stage. Health, wealth, longevity, love of virtue, or the 5 elements. However, if interpreted according to the meaning of the true name, that is the earth axis stage. Health, wealth, longevity, love of virtue. The 5th blessing one gains along the normal path of the heavenly being stage. Violent death, disease, anxiety, poverty, hatred, and weakness of the 6 extremes. And one of the 5 elements. Building all 12 of these axes is the earth axis stage. An axis is a form of nascent soul, and ultimately, the earth axis stage is about building a minimum of 4 to a maximum of 12 nascent souls. By completing 12 or 4 heaven S and connecting them to complete the concept of earth is the earth axis stage. Next comes the integration stage. Rain, sunlight, heat, cold, wind, time. If the 4-axis stage is about solidifying one's grasp over attraction force, then the integration stage is about dealing with the fundamentals of immortal arts through attraction force. It is also the stage where one understands the world through the basic immortal art called various omens. Immortal arts involve using attraction force to manipulate the plane of fate or alter history, as Xiao Huiol once explained. However, the immortal arts I learned from Changman Ryong involves overturning the world with nothing but the heart. In truth, both explanations are saying the same thing. From the moment the spirit gains the authority to manipulate attraction force starting in the 4-axis stage, it becomes capable of using attraction force to touch fate or history, enabling immortal arts. In other words, because the heart changes into attraction force, everything that twists the world through the heart is ultimately an immortal art. However, if the immortal art Xiao Huiol explained involve twisting the world through attraction force appropriate to one's realm, Changman Ryong's immortal arts involve distorting the world through the heart, which is not related to one's realm. In other words, attraction force and heart. The difference between the 2 lies in which aspect was given more emphasis in their explanation of immortal arts. Star-shattering stage. Rain, clearing, cloudiness, want of connection, crossing, inner diagram, outer diagram. It is the realm where one creates 7 satellites to form a constellation. At first glance, the immortal arts of the star-shattering stage and the integration stage appear similar, especially since the name of the formula, rain, overlaps. However, the immortal arts of these two realms are completely different. If the immortal art of the integration stage, various omens, simply manipulates celestial phenomena, then the immortal art of the star-shattering stage, examination of doubts, manipulates planes. The heavenly rain great star of the star-shattering stage engraves the form of rain, upon the planes of chi, soul, and fate. In the plane of chi, it manifests as simple rain, but in the plane of soul, melancholy infects, and in the plane of fate, darkness and misfortune gradually begin to spread. The heavenly clearing great star engraves the form of clearing, jeep, upon the plains. In the plane of chi, the weather clears, in the plane of soul, melancholy disappears, and in the plane of fate, misfortune dissipates. The heavenly cloudiness great star engraves the form of cloudiness, mong. In the plane of chi, spring wells gush forth from beneath mountains. In the plane of soul, ignorance takes root. And in the plane of fate, the future grows uncertain. The heavenly wand of connection great star engraves the form of wand of connection, e. In the plane of chi, vegetation sprouts. In the plane of soul, transmission occurs. And in the plane of fate, fortune and misfortune are passed on to others. The heavenly crossing great star engraves the form of crossing, kirk. In the plane of chi, it begins the hunt of beasts. In the plane of soul, patience. And in the plane of fate, it symbolizes victory in war. The heavenly inner diagram great star and the heavenly outer diagram great star respectively symbolize the inner and outer trigrams of the 8 trigrams, serving as the foundation to not only divine one's own fortune, but also to subtly interfere with the fate of others. Now, the sacred vessel stage. Year, month, date, hour, calendar. Correctness and straightforwardness, strong rule, mild rule. During the sacred vessel stage, truly many things happened. So many things occurred that they couldn't be fully perceived at the time, but only understood now. Light. Light is ultimately close to the essence of heaven and earth's spiritual energy. To be precise, without light, no living being in heaven and earth can dare to begin immortal cultivation. Yes, light is the origin of spiritual roots. When cultivating the formulas of year, month, date, hour, and calendar, I simply thought I see, but in hindsight, it's quite a bizarre feeling. Because this means the fundamental path of immortal cultivation for all living beings and all cultivators in this world is ultimately determined by light. Light itself is not heaven and earth's spiritual energy. However, light serves as an essential medium for receiving heaven and earth's spiritual energy. Yes, light is absolutely indispensable for immortal cultivation. Without light, no one can even dare to begin immortal cultivation. The formulas of year, month, date, hour, and calendar are the basic immortal art for handling light. The formulas of correctness and straightforwardness, strong rule, and mild rule are immortal art formulas for actively wielding light against others. Cultivating according to the formulas of correctness and straightforwardness, strong rule, and mild rule, and using the authority of the 8 paths to wield living beings in the middle realm with fate is the cultivation of the sacred vessel stage. And the final realm for mortal beings. Entering nirvana stage. The only formula in entering nirvana is royal perfection, and there are no stages such as early, mid, late, or grand perfection. There is simply the formula of royal perfection and the name of entering nirvana. That is all. From the entering nirvana stage, lifespan has no meaning. In the 4-axis stage, 50,000 years. In the integration stage, 100,000 years. In the star-shattering stage, 1 million years. In the sacred vessel stage, 10 billion years. However, from the entering nirvana stage, one can perform rituals to the heavenly domain and extend their lifespan as much as they are permitted. Moreover, the heavenly domain is not typically a sentient entity that lends power and takes it back. Thus, when an entering nirvana stage performs a ritual, the heavenly domain typically grants them power. In other words, performing a ritual at the entering nirvana stage is essentially extracting and eating heaven and earth's spiritual energy from the heavenly domain. The more an entering nirvana clings to the heavenly domain and eats heaven and earth's spiritual energy, the more they can freely extend their lifespan at will. Of course, in return, they must offer the heaven and earth spiritual energy they generate themselves back to the heavenly domain. However, what matters is the enlightenment of the entering nirvana stage. The chi refining stage familiarizes one with spiritual energy. The chi building stage grasps the starting point of heaven. The core formation stage partitions heaven and establishes the framework. The nascent soul stage completes the basic structure of heaven. The heavenly being stage perfects heaven. The 4-axis stage perfects earth. The integration stage unites heaven and earth, creating a world, and begins to understand attraction force. The star-shattering stage manifests the world one has created into reality. The sacred vessel stage governs the real world with immortal arts through one's own world. These are the enlightenments gained from the chi refining stage to the sacred vessel stage. Then what is the enlightenment gained at the entering nirvana stage? Feeling life and death gradually condensing around my immortal art, the impermanent sword, I begin to reflect on the enlightenment gained at the entering nirvana stage. The greatest characteristic of the entering nirvana stage is the mastery of planes. The heaven tribe controls the plane of fate, and the earth tribe controls the plane of chi. Thus, the earth tribe can read their own history, the history engraved in their genes and the wisdom contained within it. And they come to understand the reason they were born into this world. The heaven tribe is the same. The heaven tribe can identify the fate they were born with. In short, those who reach the entering nirvana stage come to realize their fate, Ming, regardless of whether they are from the heaven tribe or the earth tribe. Because I advanced to true immortality less than 2 days after reaching the entering nirvana stage, I could not comprehend my fate at the time. But now, I finally understand my fate. The fate of human Seo Unhyun is as follows. To be born into an ordinary family, live an ordinary school life, serve an ordinary military service, join an ordinary company, meet and spend time with Kim Young-hoon, John Myung-hoon, Kong Min-hee, Oh Hyeseo, Kim Yun, and Oh Hyun-suk, go on a trip and die in a landslide. That was my fate, Ming. In other words, everything, from my birth, to meeting my comrades, to dying in a landslide, was predetermined. Then, what exactly is the current fate I possess? To find the answer, I repentantly enlighten myself more deeply on my fate, and I come to realize, I don't know. There's no way to know the fate we were granted when we came into this world, as Yang Soo-jin once mentioned. The thing called life is truly complicated. What is life? In the domain of purity, I begin to raise my consciousness while contemplating my life and fate. At the very least, I have come to understand the fate I was born with on earth very well. Life is simply life. What else could it be? With such a trivial thought, I briefly define life and begin to unify life and death within my body. And my consciousness begins to rise rapidly from the domain of purity. Before me stretches an endless sky full of stars. That starry sky is none other than the culmination of everything I have achieved so far. The journey of my cultivation is contained within that starry sky. I see. TSDS. When I think about it, isn't it strange? In the nascent soul stage, one establishes the foundation of heaven and completes heaven upon reaching the heavenly being stage. Yet, the cultivation of the four-axis stage gives birth to nascent souls, which can be called heaveness, uses them as axes, and connects them to form what is called earth. Furthermore, in the entering nirvana stage, the earth tribe and heaven tribe both realize their fates, albeit through different methods. Though the heaven tribe and earth tribe may have slight differences in cultivation methods, they are not inherently incompatible like the heart tribe. And now, in the midst of my true immortal advancement, the endless sky full of stars unfolding before my eyes. Looking at that starry sky, I realize something. Chi, sheep, and fate, Ming. Or perhaps heaven, can, and earth, Di. Could the two, perhaps, be equal? Heaven is usually expressed as the azure sky, Sangcheng. But in the cultivation world, heaven refers to the starry sky, Xingtan. After all, the celestial energy, Kenji, that the heaven tribe reads refers to the flow of constellations or the attraction force between the stars. But isn't it strange when you think about it? Stars are ultimately earth. The earth I tread upon is, to someone living far away, seen as a glowing star. The earth we walk on is, to someone else, their star. Then, in the end, aren't heaven and earth, aren't fate and chi essentially the same existence, differing only in position and direction? Heaven is fate, Yin Ming. Earth is life, Sung Ming. From the beginning, it was twin fate, Sung Ming. When I think about it, it was always so. Chi, soul, and fate were always a single existence expressed through 3 different planes. From the beginning, the 3 were one and the same. When I looked through the vision of the heart tribe last time, the plane of chi was explosion, and the plane of fate was light. Isn't it laughable? How are light and explosion any different? I should have realized it back then. All light ultimately begins from explosions. All explosions ultimately begin from light. The only difference is direction. Fate and history are the same. The moment I realize this, I finally feel life and death completely merging within me. At the same time, as life and death fuse together, they begin to create my new physical body. A new body centered around my immortal art, the impermanent sword. A new world is being born. Within that world, my life, Sung, is contained. Kururur. The colorless sword enclosure reveals itself. At the same time, a massive mist shrouds the surroundings of the colorless sword enclosure, and brilliant auroras shine through the mist, creating a breathtaking spectacle. A world covered entirely by sword mountains, yet at the same time, it is also a star. This star, roughly the size of a middle realm, emits a soft, candle-like white light. This is my new body. It is essentially an immortal body. Of course, it's not yet fully completed. Only one aspect of the immortal body is finished. At a glance, it doesn't seem all that different from the entering nirvana stage, but there's an overwhelming difference. Chi, soul, fate. It doesn't belong to any domain. I begin to confirm my position. At the same time, I realize that I have become able to perceive a very bizarre world. It is bizarre, yet it feels familiar. Black sky. It is a world where heaven and earth consist only of darkness. In this world of pure darkness, I am emitting a faint light. However, it's not exactly a universe like the astral realm, because here, a clear distinction between above and below exists. Below is filled with endless darkness, and an ominous feeling brushes against my soul, telling me that if I fall below, my very existence will be shattered. This premonition, having reached immortal rank, cannot be wrong. And what exists above is an overwhelmingly familiar sight. 10 seats. The 10 seats I have seen every time during my regressions are shining from the celestial sky, illuminating the darkness. If I had not been aware that I am alive, I might have mistaken this moment for a regression. Is that the authority of the governing immortals? It does not seem to be the governing immortals themselves. It must be the domain they govern. At the same time, I see light. This is, upon closer inspection, the light is not only emanating from the governing immortals, but also faintly glowing from other places. But the brightness is so low that it is difficult to perceive clearly, giving the impression that the surroundings are filled with pure darkness. Yet the light undoubtedly exists, and it is illuminating countless paths before me. The light is showing me the way. I realize what these countless paths represent. They symbolize the Tao I must walk as an immortal from now on. Without hesitation, I choose one of these paths of light. It's already been decided. Step. Wawun. As I direct my will towards one path, the light signifying that path connects to my world. My Tao is the cause and connection of all phenomena, and the way to accumulate cause and connection of all phenomena is repentant enlightenment. I will walk the Tao of repentant enlightenment. Flash. At the same time, my new body is fully formed. This is no longer just a world. Horroric. While the colorless sword enclosure still exists within me, it is now merely one aspect that constitutes me. A fusion of mist, auroras, and glass flickering like candle flames. This has become my new body. And at the same time, my domain, Cheiru, authority domain. Kururu. Simultaneously, an immense shock strikes my mind. This is the Tao I must walk from now on. I look up at the path, connected to me through the light. The path stretches toward the sky, and at the end of that path, in the area where the sky exists, lies one of the 10 seats. One of the 10 seats, and a presence all too familiar to me. The true name of that presence flows into me. Great Mountain Supreme Deity, Ta San Shang Beat, Guak Am, Ga. The moment I recognize Guak Am, a certain gaze descends from Guak Am's direction, a gaze filled with indifference. However, I understand the meaning contained within that gaze. Come up, higher and higher, even further upward. Simultaneously, a certain wolf flies towards me from the Great Mountain Supreme Deity connected to me. Split. Kururu. An overwhelming pain washes over me. It is not merely physical. It includes mental anguish as well. An intensely sinister and filthy pain engulfs my entire being. It feels as though not only my mind, but also the physical body I have just formed will be completely torn apart. However, I am not afraid. I face the will of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity head-on, accepting all the pain that assaults me. After some time, the pain subsides, and Guak Am withdraws their gaze. Wait, senior brother. I reshape my new body into a human form and look up at the sky. I will come. Thus, crossing countless spans of time, I finally regained consciousness within the domain of purity and embraced death. Then, centering on the impermanent sword, I condensed a body that transcends life and death, reaching a new realm. As for what path I will walk, I decided the Tao I will seek, connecting my immortal art with my path, and engraved my domain upon the world. I even overcame the advancement tribulation, enduring the gaze of a governing immortal. At last, I have succeeded in advancing to the rank of a true immortal. So, this is the true immortal realm. A world filled with darkness, a clear distinction between above and below, and a path of light connecting me to one of the 10 seats in the celestial sky, the seat of the Great Mountain Supreme Deity. A repulsive gaze, coming from an unknown source. My immortal art, that becomes increasingly firm. My consciousness, that feels as though it could cover heaven and earth, and this sun and moon heavenly domain that I sense around me. Womb. I quietly perceive the sun and moon heavenly domain. I see. The true immortal realm is not structured like the middle realms when one ascends. Instead, it overlaps upon the heavenly domain, but it differs from the four dimensions symbolizing death, the planes of chi, soul, and fate. It is a new plane that transcends them. It's not a plane like the overlapping dimensions of the astral realm. It is a world that has always existed from the start, but could not be perceived by beings of lower ranks. Beyond chi, soul, and fate, the immortal domain I had mentally reached through the Sumeru sword dance. The plane of true immortality. That is the true immortal realm. This is the true nature of what they call the great boundary. Womb. I realize how I must cultivate moving forward. I must head upward. I look downward. From below, a certain attraction force is pulling me. I cannot shake off the feeling of being bound by that immense pressure. And I realize that to break free from this binding force, I must fill this world of darkness with the light I radiate. I must expand my domain, filling this dark world with my light through my domain. The stronger the light I radiate, the more I can escape the darkness and ascend upward. By rising higher and higher, I will eventually reach the heavens and become a supreme deity. It's suffocating. Though I understand how I must cultivate, knowing only makes me feel more suffocated. From beginning to end, without the help of light, doesn't this mean cultivating as a true immortal is almost impossible? First, I must gather information. How much time has passed since the commotion I caused? What is the current state of the sun and moon heavenly domain? Whether I can still contact my comrades. There is much to investigate. I lower my body from the plane I exist into the sun and moon heavenly domain, attempting to reveal my body there. It is then, padded, vapor. When I come to my senses, I realize I've entered a massive world of vapor. This place is, just as I raise my guard, kugugugugu. Beyond the world of steam, I sense a colossal existence gazing at me. Feeling the aura of the being sends chills throughout my body. This being is one of the 10 seats in the black sky. This immortal is the naming supreme deity, Zuoming Sangbi, High in Rang, Shalom. I tremble under the overwhelming presence that feels as if it could stop my breath. However, it is not beyond what I can endure, unlike before. It merely feels like staring directly at the sun through tinted glasses. Simply looking at governing immortals no longer feels as threatening as it once did. At the same time, the human race's progenitor, immortal beast Pangu. I face that existence and offer my bow. I greet the high spirit, grand Tao nine heavens, overseeing fate, preserving life, celestial great emperor. Vapor coils around me, wrapping the surroundings in an illusory, dreamlike distortion. I have come to bestow upon you the tribulation of immortal ascension, yet you have already endured it. Do you have ties with another supreme deity? At that question, I ponder briefly before closing my mouth. Seeing my silence, High in Rang stirs knowingly within the vapor. Silence, is it? That is acceptable as well. In any case, since you have endured the tribulation, receive what is rightfully yours from this immortal. What am I to receive? At my question, they speak. The following words make me flinch in surprise. An immortal title, Shanhao. It is a name, a gift, and an insight bestowed upon all ascending true immortals by this naming supreme deity. Once granted an immortal title, your name will be inscribed in this immortal's immortal registry, and it will provide immense aid on your journey to becoming a supreme deity. Kugugugugu. From within the vast world of vapor, a vast hand emerges. The hand is clenched into a fist, as though holding something inside. Geoiok. When the hand opens, several clumps of light emerge from within. Each of these names exude a feeling remarkably close to my essence. It seems the naming supreme deity achieved a profound level of insight about me with just a single look. These are names befitting your essence as a true immortal. I gaze at the immortal titles laid out before me. Black Heaven Unfettered Immortal, Kritan Dujaishan. Obsidian Great Refusing Understanding Immortal, Xiaoda Buling Jishan. Dark Heaven Impermanence Immortal, On Tenwu Chongshan. Crystal Glass All-Extinguishing Black Heaven Great Immortal, Buli Mirjing Shintan Dashan. Mahakala Devil Devouring Immortal, Da Hitan Shermoshan. Joyful Asceticism Overcoming Fate Golden Immortal, Kuxing Jinluriko Mingjinshan. Into Crystal Glass True Immortal, Zhongming Bolicheng Jinshan. 7 immortal titles in total. From behind them, the void of the naming supreme deity echoes. Choose. The name you select will become your immortal treasure, your weapon, and your shield. It will serve as your pillar and the cornerstone of your cultivation. Translator notes. I don't know if the second title is referring to Seo Eunhyun refusing to know his fate or if referring to his stubbornness. I translated it based on the first assumption. Chapter 546, Sealing Immortal, Feng 1. Chapter 546, Sealing Immortal, Feng 1. A name, huh? I fall into thought as I hear those words. The mention of a name suddenly brings back an old memory. The time when Sacred Master Baekwon tried to bestow upon me a title that didn't suit me at all. Back then, I threatened Baekwon and refused, but I gaze into the world of vapor before me. From this being, refusal doesn't seem like an option. Opposition itself is impossible. Previously, Ohyasyo briefly borrowed the power of this being, and I was able to overwhelm that power. However, now that I face it directly, I understand. Ohyasyo hadn't been able to draw out even a fragment of this being's power. If this being so desires, even with a mere projection rather than their main body, they could obliterate someone like me in an instant. Honestly, the names presented by Haiyan Rang all feel much closer to my essence. Unlike those from Baekwon, they all feel like they truly fit me. If the titles she tried to give me felt like ill-fitting clothes, then the names Haiyan Rang offers feel like perfectly tailored garments. Names that could truly benefit me. But then, I recall Bong Mion's warning. True immortals can bring us nothing but misfortune, even if they grant blessings to all living beings in all phenomena. To us, the Enders, to those who are the 7 brilliances Kings designates, they can bring nothing but disaster. That is the nature of true immortals. Refusing would be the right choice. But I stare into the unknowable world of vapor. Unlike Baekwon, I can't even grasp a fragment of this being's will. There's no other choice. This time, I'll just have to face it head-on. I wish to ask the naming supreme deity. If I do not accept that name, what will happen? To refuse a name. At my words, the world of vapor stirs. Then, a question comes from Haiyan Rang. Do you know that water from above flows downwards? Yes, I do. Then, do you know what influence cultivators from higher realms have on those lower realms? Do you mean higher realm cultivators impact those of lower realms? Pat it. It's just when I ask back. The vapor seems to part, and countless scenes flash before my eyes. It is a scene of an entering nirvana true person advancing to become a true immortal. The true person advances. Then, they advance again to become a vestige liberation immortal, and once more to become an earth immortal. It happens right then. The descendants of that earth immortal begin to change all at once. The authority of history becomes embedded in the blood of the descendants of the earth immortal, in other words, the one who advanced to become an immortal beast, transforming the descendants into a noble demon race, possessing immortal beast true blood. The blood of the earth immortal itself becomes a living history and spiritual nature, enriching all of heaven and earth. The path, chosen by the earth immortal, their domain, allows the entire universe to operate more vibrantly. A cultivator who reaches the star-shattering stage produces spiritual energy. Those who reach the sacred vessel stage stabilize the world, and those who reach the entering nirvana stage establish the principles of the universe. High-level cultivators inherently aid the entire universe. Therefore, the more high-level cultivators, especially supreme deities at the pinnacle of cultivation, that exist, the easier cultivation becomes for all. Kururum. Taiji spins before my eyes, showing me a distant scene from the past. Living beings are advancing and facing heavenly tribulations. That's a heavenly tribulation? Golden lightning is striking down as if it will annihilate the world. Within that storm, several of the demon race burn and vanish, and only one barely manages to survive, gasping for breath. Thunder and lightning so overwhelming that it could be believed to be a heavenly tribulation for the grand perfection 4-axis stage. Yet, the surviving demon race who underwent transformation is only at the nascent soul stage. A mere nascent soul demon beast faced a heavenly tribulation meant for the grand perfection 4-axis stage. It feels like witnessing Hong Fan's nascent soul advancement. In the time before the heavenly punishment supreme deity Dugon, everyone faced such heavenly tribulations. However, after Dugon became a supreme deity, all living beings across the 3,000 great thousand worlds became able to face tribulations that they could endure appropriate to their respective realms. In the absence of this immortal, it was far more difficult for everyone to walk their path through a fitting immortal title. The name of this immortal is an unparalleled blessing to you. Receive a name from this immortal, and walk the path of an immortal more firmly. The more high-level cultivators there are, the easier the path of immortal cultivation becomes. Even just in the star-shattering stage, the more esteemed ones exist, the more heaven and earth spiritual energy accumulates. It's a reasonable statement. But I am an ender. I cannot receive a gift from a true immortal. I am grateful for the supreme deity's goodwill. However, I do not believe that goodwill ever comes without a price. A price. If bugs were to scavenge and eat the crumbs you left behind and survive, would you demand payment from them? The gap between you and this immortal is as vast as that between a bug and a human. This immortal expects no compensation from someone as small as you. Yet, even without expectation, retribution finds its way back. Therefore, I cannot lightly accept grace from the Supreme Deity. Are you saying you can refuse this name? Woo-woo. The naming Supreme Deity brings the 7 names slightly closer to me. At that moment, I am struck by an overwhelming impulse unlike anything I've ever felt before. It's an impulse stronger than sexual desire, stronger than hunger, stronger than the urge to sleep. It's a desire for a name, more intense and consuming than any other desire or yearning. Yes, it's practically lust. I am lusting after those names. I want them, I want them, I want them. No, I must have them. I must have those names. Those are names made solely for me, created by the Supreme Deity just for me. I must have them. I must have them. I must have the name made just for me. My entire body trembles. Refusal is impossible. I realize how foolish I've been. This isn't a matter of defiance or resistance. It would mean rejecting the very laws of the world itself. Having lived my entire life with a name, it's impossible to refuse the naming of the owner of names. I must have it. I must have it. I must. And so I reach out my hand, plunge it into my own body, and begin to extract it. Buduk, budududuk, budududuk, quia. It is a concept. I am extracting an entire concept from within me. That concept is like a tongue that can speak, like a precious heart, or even like testicles that one cannot imagine being without. Bududududuk. My scream echoes within the world of vapor, and my willpower pushes back against the vaporous world. At the same time, I manage to partially escape the world of vapor and return to the true immortal realm above. In other words, I am back under the black sky. Before my eyes lies the hazy, dreamlike world of vapor that had momentarily swallowed me whole. I extract the desire for a name, surging within me, and extend it before the naming Supreme Deity. I am certainly grateful for the grace of the Supreme Deities. However, this is my will. If the Supreme Deities will clouds my own and compels me to choose a name driven solely by lust, I will not accept that name. An enraged Haiyan Rang can have me crushed immediately, like during the time with Blood Een or Yang Sung. They can leave me neither dead nor alive. However, it cannot be helped. This is something I do not want. Then, ha 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 ha, ha 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 ha. Kururu. This insane. It feels as though the entire true immortal domain is shaking. I stagger, unable to steady myself amidst the laughter of the naming Supreme Deity. It feels exactly as if I have become a candle before a typhoon. VERYWELL. IAPOLOGIZEFORMYDISCOURTESY. Do. With that, I can feel the projection of the naming Supreme Deity becoming more tangible before my eyes. Seeing. At the same time, I see something glowing within the depths of that world of steam, something like the sun and the moon. It is an eye. The naming Supreme Deity is, through the projection, properly directing their gaze at me. And for some reason, I feel as though I have seen that eye somewhere before. PROVEIT. Kururu. The authority of the naming Supreme Deity begins to crash over me like waves. IFYOUCANNOTP or OVEIT. ISHALLNAMEYOUASIPLEASE. I sit in a lotus position. The storm of vapor sweeps over me. My candle-like domain feels as though it could be extinguished at any moment by the authority of the naming Supreme Deity. However, I steel my will and recall the time when I received a plum from Chongmun Rao. Even after hundreds of days had passed, I did not spit out the plum. Through willpower alone, I twisted death. Just as I did back then, I endure with my will. The waves crash and swallow the candle. But my flame does not go out. The storm of vapor shakes the candle violently. Yet my flame remains unextinguished. Puak. Just then, the hand of the naming Supreme Deity, made of vapor, strikes down upon me. However, I do not collapse in the end. Quam. The hand of vapor strikes me and scatters. Yet, I remain steadfast, maintaining my lotus position without bowing my back. Recall it. That moment when I did not spit out the plum. A wave of power so immense that the likes of Chi, Soul, and Fate cannot even compare, tries to trample me. But, I endure. Bududududuk. At that moment, I feel an immense chest pain spreading from deep within me. Yet I endure. The chest pain tortures me, but at the same time, it helps me focus my mind in this world of vapor. And just when that chest pain gradually spreads throughout my entire body, dying me entirely in agony. I let out a voice. This pain is familiar. The advancement heavenly tribulation I received from Guak Am. That same feeling as when I was under a supreme deity's gaze. As the pain that started from my chest takes over my entire body, I finally feel my consciousness fully settling into the true immortal realm. Now, the words leaving my mouth no longer feel like, well, surpassing chi, soul, and fate, but exactly like the voice I uttered as a human. Just when I realized that, Puek, the storming world of vapor disappears in the blink of an eye, and before me lies a humanoid mass of vapor, sitting in the same lotus position as me. Have you realized it? Yes, this must be the beginning of proper immortal arts. Excellent. They quietly expressed their admiration, and I quietly let out a sigh. Even after understanding immortal arts properly at the true immortal rank, while opposing High-in Rank's authority, and becoming accustomed to the true immortal realm, High-in Rank's voice still feels like hearing the will of a true immortal as a mortal being. Originally, I intended to crush you with the intent to truly kill, not to grant enlightenment, but you overcame it. Indeed, this immortal truly wishes to grant you a name. If it's a gift, I must ref you. What if it's not a gift, but a transaction? Pardon, I imposed a trial upon you with the intent to kill. By overcoming it, you have proven yourself as someone who can trade equally with this immortal. If you offer something of yours, I shall grant you a name you desire. At those words, I swallow hard. Though I had previously refused a gift, even if it meant tearing away a part of the depths of my soul. If it's a transaction, the situation changes. What immense greed I feel. That must mean the naming supreme deity's name is unimaginably essential to the cultivation of a true immortal. After much contemplation, I make my decision. If it's a transaction, I will comply. What does the supreme deity desire? Offer something you consider precious. Then, I shall grant you a name. Understood. Without hesitation, I offer what I hold in my hand. Something that resembles a tongue, a heart, or perhaps even testicles. A writhing thing that's formed of candle flame or glass, flies towards the being of vapor. It is the desire for names that I had just extracted. I will accept the name, but I will not be swayed by it. Instead, please accept this. At my words, High-in Rang remains silent for a moment before starting to laugh again. Ha 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 ha. Ah ha 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 ha. For some reason, it is a laugh that sounds pleased. Good. Take it. The name you desire. I reach out to one of the 7 immortal titles that float before me. Into Crystal Glass True Immortal. That is also a fine name. And then, grasping one part of that name, I immediately use an immortal art. Split. Through the Great Mountain Splitting Emperor technique, which has risen to the domain of immortal arts, the characters of End to Crystal Glass True Immortal, split into 7 pieces. Among them, I do not covet anything else, only accepting the 2 characters Crystal Glass, Boy. These 2 are enough. The naming supreme deity, who remains silent for a while at my behavior, lets out a clear laugh once more. Excellent. Not a name given by another, but a name chosen by oneself, is it? Very well. That will henceforth be your immortal title as a true immortal. The human of vapor points a finger towards me. The 2 characters seep into the place in my chest where the desire for names had been extracted. Crystal Glass being, Boliju, Sio Unhyun. From now on, that name will be your designation. Keying. At that moment, I feel something powerful settle into my mind. Thus, I receive my immortal title from the naming supreme deity High-in Rang, the progenitor of the human race, and finally receive my immortal conferment as a true immortal. What I received from you, I will plant as a seed, and when you surpass immortal lords, I will return it to you as a new name. Finished speaking, the human of vapor scatters with the wind and vanishes. Leaving their final words behind, the naming supreme deity High-in Rang returns to where they originally came from. Beware of the snakes, for they are after you. Their will carries meaning, and I instantly understand what they mean. At the word snakes, the meaning of Radiance Hall is imprinted into my mind. Radiance. It seems immortals often refer to the forces of light as snakes. With that, I realize something. Does light symbolize wisdom in the plane of fate? Light is deeply connected to spiritual roots and immortal cultivation. Light is wisdom itself. Furthermore, those who directly behold higher existences often gain special constitutions or spiritual roots, enabling them to achieve rapid advancement in cultivation. Perhaps the reason Kim Young-hoon gained core formation cultivation after gazing upon the Great Mountain Supreme Deity was due to this. Tingle, tingle. Shaking my head, I descend towards the Sun and Moon Heavenly Domain. First, let's gather information in the Sun and Moon Heavenly Domain. Before advancing to true immortality, Blood-een had bathed my soul in light, infusing wisdom into me. That wisdom was none other than a rough overview of the power structure and information regarding the true immortal realm. Mount Sumru is divided between the Radiance Hall and the Underworld. In fact, except for the heavenly venerable of the underworld, the other three heavenly venerables, and except for the great mountain supreme deity and the swallowing heaven supreme deity, all the other factions are allied with Radiance Hall. What a powerful faction. Though it seems that although the supreme deities and heavenly venerables are nominally allied, they also maintain connections with the forces of the underworld behind the scenes, walking a delicate tightrope. So they're aligning themselves with whichever side offers them even the slightest greater advantage. I also understand what the naming supreme deity meant when they said that Radiance Hall would target me. The problem was defeating the Northern Dipper 7 heavenly lords alone. Because of that, Radiance Hall, which had once been driven to the brink of annihilation by the vast cold heavenly lord, is now terrified and seeks to capture me. Woo-woo. Descending from the plane of fate, past the plane of soul, and into the plane of chi where the sun and moon heavenly domain lies, I organized the power structure of Mount Sumeru in my mind, along with essential terminology and common knowledge necessary for a true immortal. Still, thanks to Blood Een instilling so much knowledge before departing, I've avoided the situation of being clueless about everything. So this sun and moon heavenly domain is considered a closed dimension and is typically managed by the Radiance Hall. Even most true immortals cannot casually enter here. Only true immortals affiliated with the Radiance Hall, those permitted by the Radiance Hall, the Reapers of the Underworld, and the Heavenly Venerables can enter. I now understand why the true immortals who are said to often meddle with the world are nowhere to be seen in the sun and moon heavenly domain, except for Blood Een. And beyond the entrance to the sun and moon heavenly domain blocked by Yangsu Jin, the heavenly domain directly connected to it is. At last, I descend fully into the sun and moon heavenly domain. But the moment I arrive, I freeze in place. Heavenly King heavenly domain. The sun and moon heavenly domain is directly connected to only the Heavenly King heavenly domain. The wisdom from Blood Een had already informed me who governs the Heavenly King heavenly domain. It is directly ruled by the Radiance Hall. That's right. Yang Sujin blocked the entrance with his ring finger to prevent the forces of light from directly interfering with the sun and moon heavenly domain. Because of this, I had assumed that no beings from the Heavenly King heavenly domain would be here. Or, at most, they would descend through projections, like the Great Sun Heavenly Lord had done previously. But why on earth? The moment I descend into the sun and moon heavenly domain, I cannot move as my mind freezes upon seeing the being approaching before my eyes. That being, who has appeared as if predicting that I would arrive in the sun and moon heavenly domain on this day and this moment, is a giant god wearing a silver mask. Radiance 8 Immortals. 5th seat. Sword Spear Heavenly Lord. That being has come with their main body. Seo Unhyun. The Sword Spear Heavenly Lord calls my name. And, how strange, I sensed that you would descend here after completing the advancement ritual. The Sword Spear Heavenly Lord unfolds something in their hand. It is my vestige, carrying my familiar aura. My vestige. The physical body I shed. So it really did fall into the hands of the Radiance Hall. I see. Being also of the Heart Tribe, you did not descend all the way to the plane of Chi, but are moving through the plane of Soul. In that case, shall I visit a place worth exploring? I can feel it. The powerful greed emanating from the Sword Spear Heavenly Lord. That being covets me. Pot. With a flash of silver light, the Sword Spear Heavenly Lord disappears from the spot. Ho. Only then do I exhale a breath filled with spiritual energy and land on a nearby planet. An altar, seemingly prepared by someone, embraces me gently. As I sit atop the altar, I realize what has just happened. The immortal title, Crystal Glass Being, bestowed upon me by the naming supreme deity Haiyan Rang, has shielded me from the gaze of light. I have become a being who can pass through the gaze of light like crystal glass. Translator notes. Just a reminder that sealing can also mean conferring something, like conferring an immortal title.